Okay, welcome everyone. I hope you are doing okay. And we are going into day 3 of our hackathon, pre-hackathon training. I have a couple of my colleagues here. My name is YJ. I'm one of the fake panelists here. Gabriel and Hui are here to help us out. And I think some of the other panelists some of the other facilitators are helping out in ed as we speak. Okay. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to share my screen and we will get going. Let's share my entire screen. It's probably easier. Okay, so once again, before I start, just a few announcements as always. One of the main announcements is that the AWS Educate invites should be out. All right, I hope to spend a little bit of time on this tomorrow. All right, just to orientate you with it. But I think it should be fairly straightforward. I don't think you actually need to think too hard about how to use it. Especially if you're already familiar with AWS. If you're not familiar with AWS, we will try to cover a brief amount of it tomorrow. But the good news is that you're getting AWS Educate invites, right? Which means that not only are you getting AWS credits, and for those of you who don't know anything about what I'm talking about, AWS is Amazon Web Services, right? Pretty much the back end of the entire web nowadays. AWS Educate is their department that handles, knowledge training, and they've got all these little tutorials that you can actually go through and start learning, right? So go join the class, join the invite, go and check it out, right? We'll do a very quick run through tomorrow. We won't spend a lot of time on it, but if you think it might be useful for you, by all means, go ahead and use it, right? Well, it comes with $25 of credits per team member, and you can try and figure out how you want to pool it or, distribute resources. We found that very few people will actually finish using it. Okay. I do have a notice from the AWS team, but I'll post this on announcement later. Let me just mention it now. If you're going to use SageMaker, which is the machine learning tool, I think you need to let us know. So I'm going to set up a form or something so that people can let us know and then enable more permissions for you if you want to use their machine learning tools. All right, so AWS Educate. All right, let me just pull up their website real quick just to show you what I mean by educate. AWS Educate. There we go. Okay, so this is a whole thing about AWS Educate. I can just sign into my my training account so you can take a look. I do have not mine. Okay. All right, I have this. I have one account which is a student account. All right, and this is what it looks like when you log in. You have all this stuff you can learn about being an application developer. You can go and get digital certs on cloud computing, cloud literacy, and so on and so forth. At some point when you want to actually use your credits, okay, then you can actually do this, right? The numbers will be slightly different, okay, because we're not a member institution. Your schools might be member institutions, so you might be able to get more credits somehow, okay? But once you do this, you click on it, they'll guide you through how to actually get it, right? So it's a different domain, awseducate.com rather than amazon.com, okay? So I would like you to, take a look at it and see and find out more for yourself if you're interested. Okay, so that's the one announcement. The other announcement is the usual reminder. Hello, everyone. We do need you to make sure that you can see your team channels, right? I mean, I can see all the team channels because I'm an admin, but you should be able to see two channels. One is a text channel and the other one is a voice channel. Okay, and if you don't, please look at the note in welcome and rules. Everything's inside here. If you only see welcome and rules, please make sure you click on this button, right? Then you can head over to help urgent and let us know who you are, right? Please do try and make sure that we know that we can see your name as well. We are not going to check every single name before we verify them. But if your team members cannot recognize who you are, they might ask us to kick you out. Okay. And if anyone sees anybody who shouldn't belong in your team, right, please let us know. It's very easy for us to click wrongly and assign the wrong role to you. Okay. All right. So that's very important. If you still don't have a team, right? Yeah, you can be like Owen over here and just put the category and the team, and we know who you are. We will assign you to your roles. Okay. So thank you to everyone who's done it so far. It's a bit of a challenge for us to manage, 800 over participants, but it's going to be fun when we finally get started. Let's go. So what did we do the last lesson? I'm not actually going to go through all the entire things we did in the last lesson. We actually started off with the creating components, which was actually in code exp1, the slide set 1. Okay, so we have 5 units worth of slides, and there's one more coming in tomorrow. All right. I'm not super confident I can finish everything, but the stuff inside there is guided. So if I can't finish, I'm gonna skip past some parts, and you can try it on your own. And you can ask questions on Ed. Okay, so once again, if you hopefully have an Ed account, all right, we'll be using Ed for the final submission, the submissions as well. Okay, so do familiarize yourself with it a little bit just to see how it's done. Okay, but right now using Q&A, you do not have the invitation to the submissions one yet. Don't worry. Okay. All right. So anyway, you can ask questions over here. We'll try and help you out as best we can. Okay. So where was I? So where we started off from last week was this thing over here, where we did this part about creating a component, right? So here it is. Here. Okay. And I think I got quite a few questions. I thought I just spend a couple of minutes at this point just to go through why we did this. Okay. One of the key things, one of the very, very key things about React and React Native is that you can move these things out into their own components, you can create reusable things, right? Those of you who have some kind of software engineering background, right? You've done courses where they tell you, hey, it's a great idea to refactor your code. That's exactly what's going on here. Okay. So one example I can always give you is a profile picture. You're creating an app, right? And you have a profile picture, Instagram, right? So let's say Instagram. Instagram has a profile picture of you on your profile page. Okay. There's a profile picture of you on the stories in the top left-hand corner, right? So you can tap on it and add a story. And various other places, right? When you comment, I think your profile picture, a small profile picture shows up. Okay. It doesn't make sense for the people who write Instagram to every time they want a profile picture, they have to build the entire thing from scratch. No, right? What they want to do is they want to have a profile picture, right? Component, pretend that is written in React Native. I have no idea, right? They have profile picture component. What do you pass in the profile picture component? You pass in the user ID, for example. You pass in the size. Maybe that's about it. Or shape, right? Maybe circle or square. So what we are asking you to do with these components is we want you to create these kinds of little components, right, that make life easier for yourself. So I have to admit, yes, our example here, this counter text is a bit contrived, right? You could just say text, right, and then give it a style of something with a certain color and font size. Yes, that's true. But imagine a profile picture. A profile picture will contain, pictures and, might contain like asynchronously load some data and things like that. But the person using it, right, not the person designing it, the person using it should be able to grab it and say profile picture, right? Then got profile picture. Yeah, congratulations. Okay, so that's the idea behind components. Just wanted to reiterate this in our little recap. We went through this entire info app thing fairly quickly, all right? But that's because it's not a very interactive app, right? This app over here is really just one of those, I call it open house app, right? You want to create something for people to download for your open house, it would look something like this, right? There's probably not going to be much interactivity inside it, okay? So the key thing that we took away from this though was React navigation, which allowed you to create multiple screens and switch between them. So we use the stack navigator and the tab navigator. And our app looks like this, okay, it's bigger. All right, so there's a tab navigator down here. And up here, there's a stack navigator. A stack navigator means you can push in different pages, right? Sometimes having a stack navigator that's just a single page might almost make sense as well, just to frame what you're showing, okay? So the way we did that was we used this library called React Navigation, okay? And we did some NPM installs. I know this tripped some people up. I guess one of the key things I should mention is when you do NPM installs, there's going to be all kinds of warnings, right? Programmers are finely tuned to ignore warnings until they come back and bite them, right? So yeah, those of you who are fairly new to it, you're like, oh, warning, I must do something. What's wrong? No, it's okay. Ignore it, okay? Unless you really get an error. We also learned that you can go and grab icons, right? There's a whole website of icons that Expo has made available for you. And all you need to do is to import the icon family, right? From Expo vector icons, right? Then you just render the component with some information and you're good to go, okay? What else did we do? Yeah, so this is a ternary operator. Is something that if you ever want to have a compact if-else statement, shows up all the time, thought we would make a quick mention of it, okay? Stack navigation. In stack navigation, you can actually go ahead and have things go from page to page, right? Makes life a lot easier for you to work with, okay? And yep, and the last thing I talked about was this thing, right? Using React Native UI libraries, third-party libraries created by nice folks out there. Maybe not so nice, who knows. Some of them have commercial interest in making this. Some of them are just like, hey, look at what we can make. You want to hire us to make your app for you? We can, right? But great thing for us, right, as learners is then you can just use this if you really want to, right? Save you some time from styling. If you have a designer in your team, then by all means let the designer go wild and do make it look great. But if you're really raring to go, you're gonna quickly build something, then these might be good choices for you. Okay, so React Native Paper gives you a material design look, native base, right? And I really like the way they illustrate this here, right? So with native base, you just use this text component and you have all this stuff built in for you, right? That's the power of components in React. Okay. All right. So beyond that, I think I didn't spend much time on lists in this particular chapter because we moved on to the next chapter where we got started with our Kueh Lapis app. Okay. Our Kueh Lapis app, we started off, well, I went through some React concepts, right, while we were waiting for it to install. And the key thing is that lists are very important because they are everywhere, right? So if you ever need to display a whole bunch of data sequentially, that's a list right there. So the main thing that we use is something called flat list, right? A flat list has a data prop. It takes in an array. This has to be an array of objects, okay? It can't be an array of strings. It can't be an array of numbers. It has to be an array of JavaScript objects. So keep that in mind. A render item function, right? In this case, I've written it inline, right? This is the render item function. You can also put it outside as its own function. And this one is a key extractor, which I didn't talk about, right? I didn't talk about it because our data array at the time had an ID for every single object. Okay, so for the flat list, having a unique ID for every single object is very important because it helps set up a whole bunch of optimizations. If your data comes in without an ID, you have two choices. One is you manipulate it until you get an ID before you put it inside, right? This can be done with some array higher order functions if you really want to. However, if let's say you're receiving this data and there's no time for you to process everything every single time, it doesn't make sense to do it, you can use this thing called a key extractor, right? This key extractor prop, and this is not something I went through. This key extractor prop says, given an item at a certain index, which thing can I use as a key, right? Given an item at a certain index, what thing can I use as the key? So in this case, if you have unique titles, then you can just say, okay, no, item.title, right? Use that as the key. Okay, so hopefully that kind of makes sense. It's just like saying, in a class list, right? Those remember secondary school, right? You have a class list, okay? Assuming everyone has a unique name, then you actually technically don't need an index number to differentiate people because everyone's unique. You call Bob Tan, there's only one Bob Tan. However, if you have two people with the same name, right, then you need to figure out a different way, right? Then you need an index number. So in this case, maybe you could do item.title plus index. I don't know, something like that. Okay, so that's a flat list. There's a section list as well, which with sections. I skipped past this entire name array thing, right? But this is just to talk about performance. Okay, and I also recommended this little video over here from 1830 to 2330 to tell you about why you need keys. Okay, why you need keys. So we got started on this Kueh Lapis app, right? I'm not going to restart it. I'm going to resume from where we started. And the idea behind this app is you press add color, it will add a new layer to your Kueh Lapis. Okay, and we will try and continue from here. Okay, so I think from here, let me pull up my Visual Studio Code and continue, right? So any questions, do let us know in the Q&A and we will try and get back to you as quickly as we can, okay? Right, I'll just keep an eye on that other computer over there. So here is my Kueh Lapis app. I have not actually moved it from last lesson. It's still the same computer, right? This is app.js. The first thing we did was we refactored out our block RGB components, right? Each of these things is a block RGB, and it's just a view with 100% width and a certain background color that depends on the props that are coming in, the red prop, green prop, and blue prop, okay? And it's got a height of 80. In theory, you could even customize it further, right? You could have a block RGB that takes in a random height. Yeah, so yeah, you could do things like that. You can try and figure it out, okay? So for now, I'll leave this as is, okay? In my actual view, which is the return statement, all I have is a button. This button says on press, we will add a color. We run this function called add color, Okay, and inside here I have a flat list. This flat list has it's got to have a width. Okay, it's got to have a width. It's got to have a data array of colors, and it's got to have a render item function. The data array is a state variable. Okay, it's a state variable. The reason why you want it to a state variable is you want it such that the moment I add a new color to this colors array, bam, the entire UI will update itself, right? Very convenient, right? We don't need to go and maintain this data and say, oh, I added to here, then I must tell the array to update itself. No need, right? We just say, I added here, cool, and then it updates itself, okay? So this use state thing, and this thing is something I went answer a couple of questions on. This thing inside here is the initial value of colors, right? This thing is the initial value. So initial value here is just an empty array, okay? JavaScript is not a very strongly typed language. When you give it an empty array, it's like, okay, lor, I know you're giving me an array, but I don't know an array of what, but I'll just set aside memory for an array, okay? Turns out the array is full of objects that look like this, okay? The objects have red, green, blue, and ID. All right, so every time you press plus, every time you add a color, you will get a new random red color, random green color, random blue color, and the ID depends on the length, right? So if the length is currently 0, item 0 will have ID 0. That's perfectly fine, right? Because it's a unique string. Okay, then we tack on the previous colors onto it using this spread operator. All right, so let me run this npm start. Okay, so this is my terminal in Visual Studio Code, and here you go. Here is my here's my browser window. I can run this today. I will run this on my simulator. Hopefully, it doesn't try and launch a new simulator because I already have a simulator here. No, it launched a new simulator. Okay, well, whatever. All right. So anyway, that's fine. This computer is decently fast. Okay, so let me get this going and. Yeah, you'll build the JavaScript bundle. Simulator tends to be a little bit slower, right? So some of you have a simulator, you have tried it out, right? But you don't need to. You don't need to run this in a simulator. You can run this on Expo Snack. You can run this on the web preview. Okay. So all right, got it. Okay, there you go. So here we go. Here's our thing. Doesn't look fantastic on the iPod Touch for being a tiny screen, but you know what? The nice thing about this is that our screen sizes don't actually matter too much. Okay, so that's a consideration. That's actually a consideration to keep in mind because you'll be like, huh, do I need to design for different screen sizes for the competition, for the hackathon? No need, right? I think. And also because if you read through the participant doc, you'll know that you're supposed to be recording a video of your submission. Okay, so I guess it doesn't actually matter whether it works on multiple devices. Okay, but the nice thing about React Native is that it adapts to different screen sizes. It's very much like the web. Okay, a question here that my colleague Gabriel is answering. My simulator is stuck on the loading page. Depends on which loading page. If it's the simulator loading page, quit and reopen the simulator. If it's Expo loading, you can press Control-Command-Z and press reload. Okay, so I'm not sure which loading page it is, but it depends on it. Okay, it could be Xcode at fault. And if it still doesn't load, there could be some issue. You might want to restart this thing over here, this npm, right? Just press Control-C. Let me just restart it. Control-C will stop the entire thing. Okay, and then you can npm start again. All right, and you open up a new window, but I think the old window is perfectly fine. Click on run on iOS simulator again, and I think it should link up to the previous thing. Okay, if it doesn't, Control-Command-Z, reload, and I think it should link back up unless the URL has changed somehow. There you go. Okay, so that's an example. So there are some little shortcuts here. You can press A inside. You can press I to open simulator inside here. Right, there's a QR code here. You can scan this with your phone. You can open the web. You can reload the app inside here. If I press R, I pressed R inside this terminal window. It will happily reload for me. Okay, it's easier than Control-Command-Z. And a whole bunch of stuff, right? You can press D to show developer tools. All right, and there's actually debugging tools as well. Okay, so that's some slightly different. Okay. All right, so let's continue with what we were doing. We're resuming from Tuesday. Okay. All right, so today's agenda, we'll try and finish this up. do a bit of optimizations to this before we move on to making a to-do list, okay? Because, every mobile app class must do a to-do list, okay? And the to-do list, we're going to have it backed in the database, right? So right now, our colors, if you restart your app, it disappears, okay? So that's not great. If we want to save our data, we need to save it somehow. There are a few ways. Today, we'll learn about the local database, today and tomorrow. And tomorrow, we'll try and save the data to the web, right? Particularly using AWS, hopefully using AWS, right? I will check to make sure my code still works. Okay, so anyway, back to this, right? So we were at, where did we stop? Okay, so here's the next thing you want to do, right? For this Kueh Lapis app, right? We want it such that you want to send data between your screens. Okay, I think that's a useful thing. You want to tap on this, right? And it'll bring up a screen that tells you what color this is. Okay, I think that'll be a pretty useful feature. Here it is, right? Add color, you tap on it, and then it will actually show you the color inside here, right? How red, how green, and how blue it is. And this is a pretty important thing to be able to do, passing data between screens, okay? And the way it passes data is just when you call the component, you send in the data together with it, okay? All right, so how do you pass parameters, right? You've been using the navigation parameter, okay? And yes, you continue using the navigation parameter. You do navigate, right, to the destination, followed by an object full of the parameters that you want to send in. Okay, it's not quite the same as the way we did it with components and props. Okay, we send in over an object full of parameters. So here's what we're going to do. All right, we're going to create a new detail screen. All right, wrap our block RGBs in touchable opacity. Okay, and in onPress, we're going to introduce the navigation parameter because I don't think we bothered adding it just now, right? This home screen doesn't have a navigation parameter just yet. And in onPress, we'll have a function that calls navigation.navigate to go to detail screen. Okay, and don't forget to add it to the stack as well. You need to add detail screen to the stack. Okay, so I'll just very quickly go through this, and you please let me know. I'll try and give you some time to follow along and try things out. And once again, all this should be on GitHub. So let me open up my new window over here and just check my Git status. Yes, it is up to date, right? If anyone needs the GitHub link, I've forgotten what it is, but I can, not this one. Demo dash, where's my Kueh Lapis? Let me go check. Hang on, let me go put the link into Discord as well, in case anyone's just joining us. All right, so where's my, there it is. Okay, so I'll put this into Discord, right? So the current workshop. Current demo repo is here. Okay, all right. Let's go. Close this. And what do I want to do? I want to make a new screen, right? So a new screen, once again, I like having a separate folder for screens. So I'm going to press this button, create new screens. Okay, I'm going to press the new file. I'll call this details screen.js. Okay, and details screen.js usually need to import a bunch of stuff. So import React from React. We need to import usually text and view from React Native, all right? And as I save, you'll notice that my Prettier plugin is working and it's got semicolons and stuff, right? I need to export default function details screen. And for now, I'll just return a text that says, hello, I am very detailed. Okay, right, so good enough for me for now, right? My goal is I want to be able to tap on one of these things and it will send me over to detail screen. Okay, whether it sends over any data or not yet, never mind. Okay, for now, that's good enough. Let's go back to app.js. Let's go import the detail screen. So import details screen from /screens tab to autocomplete /detail screen semicolon. Okay. So that didn't do anything. It just made sure I have access to detail screen. And that's useful because I need to add it to my stack. Okay, so stack.screen, name equals to details, right? And over here, maybe you don't like name equals to home. Sure, call it Kueh Lapis, right? Component equals to detail screen. Okay, so there you go, right? So Kueh Lapis, and there's a component over here that goes to detail screen. Okay, Oh, Prettier plugin doesn't need to work. This one I know. I have it such that I reformat my code on save. Okay, so if you don't have that set up, you have to right click and choose a format document. Right. If you want to make it reformat on save, which I find very handy most of the time, you turn on the settings. All right. Settings are in either here or in when it's on Windows, I think it's file or edit settings. All right. Control, comma, or command, comma. Search for format on save. Yeah, and then make sure this checkbox is on. Okay, so I just answered this question real quick from Siddharth. Okay, so yeah, Prettier. If you see over here, then it should be installed lah. Okay, so I find it handy just turn it on, especially when I'm teaching a class. Sometimes when you really want to do some stuff, like I'm like, okay, I'll show you an example when it's useless, when it's super annoying. Like when I really want to put this inside a bracket, right, and delete this, and I want this to be separate lines. I don't like this to be nicely. I don't like this to be all on one line, right? I think it's better if I put this on separate lines. Okay, then I'll be like, yes, I finally managed to format it nicely. All right, save. It goes back to before. Walao. Okay, so just be aware of this issue if you do turn on format on save. Okay, all right. So where was I? I had just added my detail screen into the stack, and my job is to make sure that this entire thing is clickable. You can click on this thing and it will pull up the detail screen. So I will do that now. The way I do that is inside this render item. Okay, every single item should have a touchable opacity around it. Now, at this point, you might notice what I did just now when I did my little demo complaining about Prettier. First things first, remove this semicolon, okay, and surround this thing inside a bracket. Okay, that means I can return a whole chunk of stuff. Next, I will wrap this thing inside a touchable opacity. Okay. And at this point, I'm going to press tab to autocomplete. But this one, look very carefully at my screen. This auto import is from React Native. There's a touchable opacity from React Native gestures. Okay, which for some reason behaves a bit strangely. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what it's doing. I haven't looked into it yet. Okay, so just be careful. If you use this thing where you press tab and autocomplete in Visual Studio Code, you do need to be very careful and look at where it imports it from. Okay, so but anyway, it's correct. I'm going to press tab and there you go. Touchable opacity. On press equals to nothing for now and wrap it inside here. Okay. However, a touchable opacity must okay, let's just return first. Okay, return now. Can I return now? Okay. On press equals to, okay, let's just have an empty function. Okay, this is an empty function right here. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so I've wrapped every single one of my block RGBs inside a touchable opacity. So I click on it, right? Oh, it's clicking. Very touchable, very opacity. Touch, 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 touch. Okay, anyway. And if you really want to make sure that it works, you can put in something here that says console.log. Okay. So now when you do that, Prettier is like, okay, let's put this on different lines. All right, let's put this on. So if I press, if I open up my console, switch back to my first console. Okay, pardon me. Sorry, I just needed to get it out of my system. Okay, so that's, and what did I want to do? I wanted it such that when I tap on it, I want this to jump over to the second screen over there, right? How do you jump over? You need the navigation prop. Remember navigation prop? Navigation. Okay, you need a navigation prop inside this home screen. And instead of console.log R, we're going to say navigation.navigate, open bracket, details. Okay, because the details, the name details come from here, right? So it says, please navigate to the screen called details. Tap. Hello, I'm very detailed. Wow, very insightful. Hello, I'm very detailed. Wow, very insightful. Okay, so I'm going to leave this on the screen for a little while. I'm going to commit my code, right? I'm going to commit my code and give everyone a little bit of time to get caught up on this if you haven't managed to do so yet. Okay, so let me git add dot, git commit dash n, pardon my shortcuts, added details screen and navigate and navigate over from block RGB. Okay, that kind of makes sense, right? Git push. Okay, so now if you go to my GitHub repo, right, you will see that it's been updated 11 seconds ago. If you want to see the exact changes that I made, you can click on 6 commits and click on the latest commit hash, and you will see the changes that I've made. Okay, so you get red color, delete, green color, add. I'm sure many of you know this, right? But good to point out, right? Always good to learn something new. Okay, so let me answer some questions right here. How do you transfer the GitHub code to Expo Snack? I'm not sure. Let me try. I think you can import from GitHub, you know. I remember seeing before. Yeah, import Git repository. Okay, so it can be done. Import Git repository. Let's try. I haven't tried it before, so very exciting. Import Git repository. Copy. And if you don't want to import my latest, you can actually go to the hash of this, I think. You can go to the hash of this thing and browse files. And you can actually continue from this tree, I think. So let's try. Copy, import repository. See whether it works. Yeah, cannot. Okay. Maybe not. All right, let me try the basic version where I give my entire GitHub repository instead of the particular tree. That seems to work, right? So now I have a version of this thing on the web. Okay, so Git repository, pretty import Git repository into Expo Snack. Pretty useful, right? Pretty useful. So if some of you are planning on using Expo Snack, I guess I've mentioned this before. The only downside I can see is that you can't push lah, right? You can pull. Turns out you can pull quite easily. You can't push to work with your team, right? I don't think you can. I don't see any way to push. Okay, questions. How do you pull up the log in VS Code? Log. Oh, the log is actually the terminal. I know Gabriel's answering this as we speak, right? But this is a built-in terminal in VS Code. You can press Control backtick. Okay, Control backtick. Backtick being the button next to 1. Okay, to bring up a terminal. And what I do is I have 2 terminals. Right? You see this 2. Ignore the word fish. Fish is my shell. Right. The number 1 is the log because that's where I did npm start. Okay. Then I want to leave it running, right? So I open up a new one by pressing plus. Then that's where I type stuff like my git commits and things like that. Okay. Thanks for the questions. All right. So we'll pause for another couple of minutes and we'll resume at about 5 minutes or so. Okay. Right. If you have any questions, do let us know. Meanwhile, let me go verify some people. Okay, anyone else needs verification? Good time to let us know. We're happy to help you. All right, let me stop my video for a moment. I'll be right back. Hey, I'm back. So the question was, yeah, the autofill. Don't have a good answer for you. It tries its best, right? It tries its best, but sometimes it doesn't actually know what's coming out of these random props that you define. Right. Let me go verify a couple more teams and we'll resume. Okay. So. Oops. Okay, let's continue. All right, so we have a decently functional app where you can actually go into another page. Okay, and that's using navigation.navigate. Now we want to send data over. Okay, we want to send data over, and this part over here is going to be like this. All right, so press a comma. Okay, and then you want to send stuff over from the item. All right, so for this, it's once again, like those of you who are new to JavaScript, you'll be like, wow, this is all the same, right? It's all just everything is in curly brackets, right? Every time I see a curly bracket that's not JSX going into JavaScript mode, it's really just an object, right? So like this thing over here. So what you want to do is you really want to send over the item. Okay, we want to send over, for example, we want to send over red item.red, green item.green, and blue item.blue. Okay, because our goal is to send over this data so that the detail screen is actually able to do something with this information. Okay, there's actually an easier way of doing this. All right, let me see what I can do about making it easier for you. All right, this is very repetitive. There's a way to make it easier. I can't remember if I put it in the slides, so let me go check. All right, so pardon me. Yeah. Okay, no, we did it the long-winded way, right? Red equals item.red, green equals item.green, blue equals item.blue. I'll just take this chance to show a couple of ways that you can make life easier. Yeah, using your ... Okay. I'm trying to remember. What's the best way? Yeah, I think ... item should be able to do it. Let's try. Okay. Okay, so there's a couple of ways, a couple of things I wanted to demo. I'm trying to keep in mind what I'm trying to do. Okay, so let's do this real quick. Okay, so I'm gonna do ... item, right? By right, that should destructure into red, green, and blue. Okay, and another feature that suddenly pops up is when you send over things, right? You could, okay, before I do ... item, right? Here's one way of making life a bit easier for everyone. Okay, let me close this. I could do this, I could do red, green, blue. I could do honestly, I guess, equals to item. Okay, that's the structuring right there. All right, and in that case, then I can do red colon red, green colon green, and blue colon blue. Okay, so that's, makes life a bit easier to read, but JavaScript is not done with you. Those of you who are familiar with JavaScript, you know what I'm going to do next. When you see red colon red, you can just send red. When you see green colon green, you can just send green. When you just see blue colon blue, you can just send blue like that. So it's just red, comma, green, comma, blue. All right, red, comma, green, comma, blue, comma. All right, which brings us to the suggestion that we got in chat, right? Thanks to Asharul, is that right? You can literally just destructure item, 3 dots, right? Not 2. And that will give red, green, blue. And that's exactly what this thing needs right here. Okay, so I hope that doesn't make things too complex, right? For the folks, for those among us who are not super familiar with JavaScript, I just wanted to give you a sense of how we got to this, right? How did we end up in this scenario? Okay, so this is when I say dot 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 item, it's just taking all of items, sending in red, comma, green, comma, blue, which stands for red colon red, green colon green, and blue colon blue. Okay, if you need further explanations, right, please let us know in ad. We'll try and explain it a bit further, right? So meanwhile, I'm gonna go open my detail screen. Detail screen, we have to receive props, right? So in the props here, I can just receive them destructured, red, green, blue. Actually, no, sorry, my bad. You do not receive them as props. Okay, sorry, my bad. You do not receive them as props. Okay, these are not props. These are navigation, these are route parameters. Okay, these are called route parameters. Okay, so you have to access them using route.params. Okay, how to get route.params? Here's how you do it. Here inside detail screen, you need to destructure to get route. Okay, and that's going to console.log route over here. Okay, so when I get this thing, I'm not sure what it is. Let's console.log it and take a look at it in our log. Let's go over here. Let's go over here. Let's click. Here you go. Right, this is what we receive in the route. We receive a key, not super important to us. We receive the name of the route. Okay, that's us, right? That is this screen. All right, and we receive a parameters object. Okay, and this parameters object has red, green, blue, and ID. Right, we send over ID at the same time because why not? Right, no harm. Okay, so in order to get the red, green, and blue, what can I do? I can say route.params.red, for example. Then I'll get 13. 13. Was it 13? Yes, it was 13. Okay, and I get route.params.green, route.params.blue. You know where I'm going with this, I think, right? That's very troublesome. Const red, green, blue equals to route.params. Okay, so what this does is we are destructuring route.params into its 3 components that we care about. We don't care about ID, so we just don't put ID here. Okay, so I wanted to re-emphasize all this stuff about destructuring. You're going to see it all the time when you deal with JavaScript code, right? So what I have is route.params is an object with 4 key value pairs, okay? Red, green, blue, and ID. I only care about red, green, blue. So I destructure it into 3 variables, 3 constants called red, green, and blue. Now I can print them out. Right, so let's say now I can finally print them out. So what I would do is return, open round bracket, open parenthesis. Let's have a view, and inside there I have 3 texts. Okay, so the first text will be red, colon, red. And I'll do this 2 more times. Also, there's no semicolon. Please pardon that. Right, that came from just now. Green, colon, green. And last one is blue, colon, blue. Whoops. All right. What did I get? Oh, semicolon. Okay. So let's try this one more time. Okay. There's enough of a crash. Your hot reload will not work. You cannot reload back the same screen, right? Because your entire thing has crashed. So now if I click on this, hey, now I have the details, red, green, and blue. If I go back, I scroll down, right? This thing must be very red. Now, red, green, and blue, 187, 4, and 8. Okay. So there's a question here from Junjie. When I console the log route, I don't see anything in my console. All right. So do check to make sure that you have added this thing over here, that when you do navigation.navigate, make sure that you have sent over after the word, after where you're navigating to, a comma followed by the parameters. I'm gonna put it on one line to make it a bit easier to read. I don't know whether Prettier will object to it. Let's try. Okay, yeah. All right, so do check, and if it doesn't work, go to add and send us more details, paste your code and stuff like that, right? So we can take a look. Okay, so from here, this is great. I think we've managed to send data from one screen to the next screen, which is very important, right? Because we want the detail screen to be reusable, right? We don't want to make a new detail screen for every color. That would be you and I all both know that is completely ridiculous, right? We want a detail screen that's very flexible and can take in, this data and display it a certain way. All right. I'll leave the rest of the challenge to you, right? Because the rest of the challenge is to actually render this with the background color, right? Put this in the middle. And I think for the extra challenge is some of these colors are very dark, right? Maybe you don't want dark color background with black color text. You might want to change it around, right? So these are all like mini little challenges that you can do. But for now, I'm just going to push this to GitHub, right? And I think I'm almost done for this little exercise, okay? So let me push it to GitHub. Whoa, right, there's an error by the way. So yeah, the errors do show up in your console, okay? Not just on the simulator itself. Right, so let me push this to GitHub. So git commit -m send data over from main screen to detail screen and git push. Okay, good. All right. Okay, so I'll give everyone another 5 minutes or so just to get caught up, right? If you need it, and ask us any questions. And okay, while we're waiting, maybe I'll style this screen a bit. Okay, I'll style this screen a bit. I'll style the detail screen a bit. So let's say I import style sheet. And on styles equals to style sheet dot create, open bracket, open curly brace, and then I'll have a container. And I will set the style of this to be styles dot container. Okay. And then this container over here, what I want to do with it, I want to give it I want to center the text, right? So flex1 and justify content center, save, and align items center. All right, there you go. Okay, I can't actually pass in the colors into containers, so I'm going to make this into an array, right? So I'm going to select it, press my square bracket, so it's surrounded in this, and I'm going to add in over here. I'm going to add in another style object, which is background color colon RGBA $red, $red, comma $green. Actually, don't need RGBA, just RGB can already, but never mind. Red, green, blue, 1. There we go. Okay, so now I have a style array. Okay, all this is entirely optional, but it helps reinforce some of the stuff that we've been doing because it's very similar to what we've done before. Okay, so it's a style array, right? It takes this first, then it takes that. Okay, and this thing I put it inside this function because red, green, and blue are only accessible within this function, right? Not outside of it, inside this external style sheet. What else? I think I had this little thing where I said, well, this works well for light colors. It doesn't work well for dark color. Let's go generate a dark color. Okay, like this. Not so nice. Okay. For this, maybe we can style the text based on the total of the background colors. So this one, there are many ways to do this, but I'm going to say const average color equals to red plus green plus blue divided by 3. Right, so if average, and then no need, let's use our thing. Const text color equals to average color less than, I don't know, 100. If it's less than 100, then it's really dark, so we use white. Otherwise, we use black. Okay, so that's the idea. And then from here, all these things, style equals to color text color. Oh, this one I can demonstrate the Visual Studio Code stuff if anyone's interested. Column editing, I think it's alternate shift or option shift, right? And then you select downwards, then you can type on multiple columns at a time. Text style equals to color colon curly brace. Text, no need curly brace, right? Color colon text color. I think. Hang on, something went wrong. I need 2 curly braces. Okay. All right. That apparently wasn't dark enough. Okay. Okay, right. So this is just a little threshold, right, for when you decide that you want to switch to white color. Okay, so I mean, I'll upload this code, right? None of this is super important to the concepts that you need to learn. Okay, but I think it's still useful to know, I suspect, right? So now for dark colors, right, you get white, whereas for light colors, you get black. Okay, and it's just a couple of lines of code, and just wanted to demonstrate some of these additional features. Let me commit this. Some styling for details. All right. Okay, with that, I think we can continue. Okay, if anyone needs a bit more time, you can just let us know in the Q&A, I guess. But I think we should be okay to continue. All right, so let me just check what else is. Okay. All right, this next part is a fairly useful concept. Oh yeah, I did use dot. Anyway, this next part is a fairly useful concept, right? And I do want everyone to take a look at it. Okay. Oh, I have a question. Why do we need a $sign for RGBA? All right, so over here, is it? The $sign here is string interpolation, right? When you want to insert a variable into a text block, right? You make sure you use the backtick outside and you use $curly brace inside. Okay. Different languages have different things for this. In Swift, it's a / open bracket, right? In Python or Python and C, I guess you use you put the variables at the end and stuff like that, right? I haven't kept up with all the changes, but yes, right. It's just string interpolation, right? String interpolation, putting a thing into a string. Okay, so thanks for that question. All right, so this next part is completely extra, right? But it doesn't actually add a lot to our functionality, but it demonstrates an interesting concept, and I want to go through it. All right. So right now our add color is here. Wouldn't it be better if it was here? Right? Wouldn't it be better if it was in the window in up here itself? You have a plus button and then you press. Okay. So imagine if you were trying to do that, huh? Right? Imagine if you're like, hey, it is important to me. I really want this to be nicely designed and look good and stuff like that. Okay. So how do we do that? All right. So you would Google for it. You might say, I just want to say React navigation, navigation add button in header, add button in navigation bar, right? And what's called navigation bar. All right. And then you end up with this thing called header button. Okay. Header button. And they'll tell you how to do it. All right, so that's nice. That's really nice that, all this, Google is nice and optimized that you can find your answer immediately. And hopefully you start understanding all this code when you see it, because you see this, you're like, oh, I know where a stack navigator is. I know what a stack screen is. And I see that I need to add some stuff to my stack.screen. Okay, my stack.screen currently looks like, where's my stack.screen? My stack.screen currently looks like, very simple. It's just like that, right? Name and component. But turns out I can do more stuff, right? I can do more stuff. I can say options. Okay, so you know what? I'm going to add these options. Copy. All right. Let's go copy this thing and just dump it inside here. And great thing about Prettier, reformats it nicely for me immediately. Very nice. Okay. So, however, not everything works, huh? Right. So let's take a look. Header title, logo title doesn't exist, and then header title props. Okay, let's get rid of this header title. I don't need that. All right, I'm going to save it. Okay. And it's supposed to have a button on the header right, but I don't see it. But if I press it, oh, wow, an alert shot popped up. And that's because the color is FFF. FFF is of course white, color equals to black. There you go. When I press info, it's like, oh, info. Okay. And by the way, this is a function that I've never mentioned before, but it's super useful. It's literally just an alert, right? It's an entire alert. Do you know how hard it is to make these alerts in iOS and Android, right? Compared to typing alert. Okay. So this is a fantastic side effect of using React Native. You just say alert, boom, right? You get a nice little alert over here. These things are notoriously hard to construct in at least in Swift UI Kit, and I believe in Android as well. So yeah, alert, right? Just like you would see in your web development. Okay, but anyway, yeah, so there's a button, right? There's a button right here. Okay, if I don't put color equals to black, it will use the default tint, I believe, right? So okay, and if I don't put title equals to info, I could put plus. Hey, so in theory, right? In theory, wouldn't we be able to just say, okay, well, I put plus here, right? And then we add a color, then I can get rid of the add color. Okay, there is a problem here. There's a slight problem here. The problem is that we are defining the stack screen, okay? And all your data is inside this component. There's no direct path from this header right into the home screen. You see what I'm saying? Right? If you just want to pop up an alert and annoy your users, by all means, no problem. Okay, you can do it with this method. However, if you want to dig into your home screen state variables and add a new color, cannot, because state variables are private to that component. All right, so there must be a way to do this. And in order to do it, we need to go into do something tricky called use effect. So I'm going to delete this first. Anyway. Okay, so back to before, back to just now. All right, I'm going to add it to my home screen component, which is in the same file, by the way. Right? Maybe it might be nice to refactor this home screen out into its own file at some point. Okay, but for now we'll leave it. So how shall we do this? Right, we need to do this thing. This is called use effect. All right, so you end up with something similar. You do end up with something similar. You just call this thing called use effect, okay? And then you say navigation.set options and then blah, set a header right, okay? This is more of those things where I look at it, I'm like, oh boy, right? So many brackets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, there are like 7 levels of brackets, and there's angle brackets, there's round brackets, there's curly braces. There's just no square brackets. But such as it is when you're dealing with JavaScript. Okay, so how to use effect? Let me show you first before I explain. First things first, you need to import, right? Use effect is a hook, just like use state. Okay, use effect. Okay, so use effect. Now I'm going to create this use effect call, which is here. I'm just going to say use effect, open bracket. All right, and use effect takes a few arguments, but the first argument is a function that will run every time something changes. Okay, every time something changes on the screen. Okay, so this function, instead of typing the word function here and stuff like that, we'll just do the shorthand. Open parentheses, close parentheses, fat arrow, curly brace, enter. Okay, and this gives us a function that will be passing into use effect. We're saying, okay, the moment something happens, there is a side effect. All right, it's like, you know, eating your medications. All right, you have some side effects. Okay, so the moment you eat this medication, all right, you will start feeling nauseous. Right, that's the side effect. Okay, so we're giving our rendering process some side effects. Okay, so this effect says the moment something happens, right, please go and set my navigation options. Oops, not set colors. Right, you will see that the autocomplete starts failing, right, when it comes to things like navigation, right, because it doesn't really know about React Native, React navigation, right. Navigation.set options, right. Navigation.set options receives an object, okay, with a header right. Okay, as you can see, all the autocomplete is failing, but that's to be expected. Header right receives a function that returns an component, right? So finally, you can put button on press equals to add color. Okay, title equals to, let's just do add, right? Because my thing has not much space. save. Okay, so I just introduce a whole bunch of code. It looks fairly complex, but let me just first test whether it works, okay? There we go. All right, works perfectly fine. I can now get rid of this. I can get rid of this little thing over here. Let me just comment it out. By the way, commenting out components. Many of you who use Visual Studio Code and many editors, you know you can press Control/ or Command/. This is what it looks like. You encapsulate it within JavaScript first, then you comment it out as though it's JavaScript. Super weird, but that's the way it is. Okay, but now I have a nicer looking screen, right? Nicer looking screen where if I press add, right, then yeah, it just keeps adding to the top. No more random buttons sitting around at the top. Okay, let me commit this code first before I explain it. Okay, right, let me commit this code. So git commit-am. Sometimes I remember that I can just do both commit and add at the same time. Move add button to the navigation header. Hit push. Okay, so this is the last push for this project, right? I will now take a moment to explain what is going on with this use effect, which we'll see more of in the next project, right? Which we'll definitely see more of in the next project. Okay. All right, so let me let me just quickly talk about use effect, right, which is inside here. Okay. So use effect, right? This happens every render. Okay, so once again, use effect. If you use it this way, okay, use effect is a very flexible function. All right, there are many ways to do things, and it's all kind of weird if you really think about it. Okay, so use effect is a way of creating side effects. Okay, you're saying that, hey, when something happens, I want you to do this other thing. All right. If you've done your, like a computer science courses, you might have heard of these things called side effects or pure functions, right? Pure functions are functions that do not have side effects. They don't manipulate anything other than what they're supposed to, and they'll return you something. Okay. Side effects, on the other hand, are not necessarily a bad thing. Okay. You cannot really escape from some side effects. When you run Instagram, you must have some stuff that happens outside of your app. For example, posting an image, right? Posting a new post, creating a new post. You create post, right? And then you have to send out some network requests. That is technically a side effect, right? It's not restricted to your app itself. Okay, so that's why we'll see it next in the next couple of modules, right? Because we are dealing with databases and networks and stuff like that. In this case, this side effect is that we are setting this header every single time we do something. Every single time the component refreshes, we are adding an add button to the navigation header. I'll repeat that. It seems a bit weird, right? Also, I'll repeat that. Every time we do something like now, right? What's actually happening is that we are re-adding a new add button to the header. Okay, so we are replacing it with a new header, which is super weird, but that's really just the way it is. Okay, so at this point, let me introduce use effect. You can actually set use effect to only run one time at the beginning by doing this, right? You have a comma and then you put square brackets. Okay, so I'm going to save this and I'm going to reload the entire project. I press add. Notice what happens. Okay, what happens here, okay, is that every time I add, right, it just replaces the top color, question mark, what's going on, right? But if I go into one of these and I go back, right, no, I can't actually access any of them, okay? It's a bit strange. And what's happening here is that if we only set up this, if we only do this add one time, okay, we only create this button at the top right one time, it will forever be tied to a state where there was nothing on the screen. Therefore, when you press add color, it will only ever add one color to the screen. Okay. Whereas deleting these with my very loud keyboard. All right. Now, if I press add, okay, the moment something changes on the screen, it'll be like, okay, I have a new add button, and this new add button will call this new version of add color, which sets the colors based on the current set of colors. Okay, I'm not confident that I can explain this properly most of the time, right? Every class I do this, I will half the students will look at me. I mean, if I were doing this live class, they'll be like, "Hey," right? And then I'll be like, it's okay, never mind, not super important, all right? But that's the gist of it, all right? The idea here is that this entire function like rewrites itself, okay? This entire function kind of like reruns every single time. So in order for your add button to do the right thing, it has to be using the latest version of the function. Okay, so I hope that kind of makes sense, right? But I don't worry about it if it doesn't exactly. Okay, what keyboard do I use? I'm using one of those, what is called? It's one of those Keychron, right? Keychron, K8. Okay, I just like slapping on it. Okay, so Siddharth suggests, could we say that it gets tied to the colors variable declared at the beginning? And that's why it keeps adding one. Okay, yeah, to some extent, yeah. Yeah, I think you can say that because every time you do a set colors, right? You do a set colors, you're changing the colors variable, right? Kind of. I would be happy to use this explanation. Yeah. Okay, but anyway, the key thing I wanted to do here was just introduce use effect. Okay, and also show you how to add stuff to the title, right? If you ever need it, which I think is something that's pretty handy. Okay, so I think I've done that. We are done with this project. Okay, so I'll pause now. Any other questions about this so far? Right. So for this, I mean, at this point, if I had time and with actual class, I would probably ask people, hey, you know what? Let's go make a random something generator. You can make a random color generator, which is what we did here. Sorry. You can make a random name generator. You can make a random number generator. You can go online, find an API for random faces and a random face generator, random profile generator. Fun things. I don't think that will be super applicable to the actual topic of the hackathon, but hopefully you've learned something about how to use lists, okay, and how to work with this navigation moving back and forth between screens. We're going to do more of that very shortly. Okay, I think that's it. Oh, here's a fun little challenge, right? How do you add columns? It's actually quite easy, right? You literally have one prop that says number of columns. Okay, but making it fit the screen is slightly more challenging. Okay, this one we've done this already. Okay. What's the difference between use effect and use effect and use state? Is that what you're asking? Right. They do different things, right? Use state gives you a special variable, right, that will be able to update the screen. Use effects, which we'll talk more about shortly, again, is being able to run things at the beginning of your function, right, or when things update. Okay, those of you who have come from iOS or Android development, this is like view did load, right? You run at the beginning, right? Android, I forgot what it's called. Yeah, but yeah, essentially it's just to run something at the beginning. Now, if you don't put a comma, it just runs something on every render, right? It reruns this function on every render. Okay. All right. So I'm done with this. I have a new set of slides, which means I have a new set of projects to create. Okay, so let me close all this. Go to my terminal, CD desktop. I'll export init first, right? Export init notes app. Okay. And you can do the same if you want to, just create a new app. At this point, I should probably mention some of these things, right? You don't have to use them. TypeScript is a layer on top of JavaScript that, remember what I said about JavaScript being very, very lax about types, right? I give it a blank array, then I was like, ooh, let's add all kinds of rubbish inside it. TypeScript is not like that, right? TypeScript is trying to enforce a little bit of sanity on your types usage, okay? So some people like it because it's a great way to not accrue technical debt, right? Because you look at my code, right, just now, when you receive a navigation item, how do you know what it is? How do you know it's an object? How do you know it's not a string? How do you know it's not a number? All right. So TypeScript will enforce some of these things for you at the cost of making your code a little bit more verbose with type definitions and things like that. All right. We won't touch it for now because, I'll leave it for you to find out more if you really want to. So still blank, right? Still blank is the key thing. Okay, while it's creating all this, let me go talk. All right, so this is all right, so use effect, right? I promise I'll talk more about use effect. We will talk more about use effect, okay? And we'll talk about SQL. All right, I don't know how many of you have a basic understanding of SQL and databases and things like that. I am going to kind of gloss over it. All right, like I said, this is us trying to compress this as 3 times faster than we normally cover it. Okay, but we'll make a to-do list, right? Make a to-do list, and the key thing of to-do list is you cannot be, add something and then you quit the app and then it disappears, right? It must still be there when you open the app again, right? To do that, you must save it somewhere, and we're going to save it into a SQLite database. Okay. All right. Is this thing running? No. Is this thing? Oh, I need to make a while I'm doing all this, let me go create a new repository and do all the setup as well. Okay, so code exp demo to-do list. Is that what I call? Is that the? Yeah, okay, that's the general naming convention that I had. Okay, great. So once I'm done with that, I'm gonna copy this, head over here. I'm gonna type code on my Notes app. Okay, sorry. I get a bit confused about whether I'm making a to-do list or a Notes app. I think it's a Notes app. Sorry. Is it a Notes app? Yeah, it's a Notes app. Sorry, not to-do list. Okay, my bad. Let me rename this. Can I rename this? Sorry, better to get this correct now than to confuse people later on. Okay, Notes app. Okay, good. Let's go set up our Git repository. Here it is. Here's our Visual Studio Code. Let me just set up the Git repository and push my initial commit. Okay. Oh, I've already pushed. Okay, so here is the current thing that we are tracking. Okay, so off to Discord, and here is workshop. Current demo repo is this one. Okay, let's continue. So, yeah, we're talking about life cycle, right? Life cycle. Everything has a life cycle. So, what was use effect? The use effect is part of a component's life cycle. Okay, a component, it comes into existence, all right? It leads its miserable life with, some idiot tapping on it and doing stuff to it, right? And then it dies. That's a bit grim, but that's the general idea. Okay, components are instantiated. Okay, they're created. They're mounted. That means they are put into memory. Okay, they're rendered. That means they're put onto the screen, updated often, many times, unmounted, and destroyed. Okay, and this helps manage the, it's iOS and Android have their own ways of doing these. And React Native, what it does is it abstracts it out into a common way of doing things. So iOS, for example, has a different markers for whether a view has appeared or is going to appear, right? You can do different things depending on whether a screen is about to appear or whether it just appeared. And this subtle thing is something that, presumably Apple finds important enough to expose as an API to their developers. But React Native is like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to do this for everyone, right? Android might not have something like that. Let's just do something that's similar enough for both, and we'll go from there. Okay. The lifecycle lets you execute custom code at each step. Okay. Custom code. That means the moment you instantiate, sure, run something. That's an effect. When it's updated, run something. That's an effect. When it's unmounted, run something. That's an effect. Okay. So we're going to focus on 3 things, right? Mounting, right? Any of you who have come from React Native, class-based React Native in the past, you will know that there actually used to be this function called component did mount, and then you just put your code inside there. Okay, and that is actually easy to understand because component did mount. Okay, let's put code inside here. This is the code that will run when the component mounts. However, now using use effect, this is what happens. You run use effect, and you put in a comma and a open square bracket and a close square bracket. That's it. And this is the code that runs once after your function renders. All right. So we'll demo this shortly. Next, if you want to run something after re-rendering occurs, you can do it two ways. All right. You can do it with the way we did just now by not having the second argument at all. That means the moment anything updates, right? The moment anything updates, we will run this code. Or you can make it dependent on some kind of internal parameter that you have, some internal variable or prop or state. Okay, so that means you might be saying, well, I want to monitor this particular state variable. Only if this state variable changes, then I'll fire off a network call. All right, that's an example of use effect updating. Finally, if you want to unmount and run something, you also use this use effect hook. It's one of those blender / food preparer / juice maker / refrigerator type of devices, right? It'll do everything for you, okay? Which makes life a bit difficult for beginners. But the use effect hook is essentially if you need to run something after the component has been moved off screen, you return a function to run at the very end. Okay, this is most commonly used when I think next session when we talk about working with either Firebase or Amplify. There'll be something for you to monitor this API. And you don't want it to keep monitoring after your component is unmounted. That's a waste of memory and it's sucking up your API requests. Okay, so you want it such that the moment the component unmounts, you stop monitoring this API. Okay, so I hope that kind of makes sense. That's probably a little bit of complexity just added it in, but I think once we work with it, it should make a bit more sense, right? Those of you who are not very into this whole idea of side effects. Well, yeah, so side effects, right? The side effects, this is an example of side effect. If you let age equals to 2 and then you change age, all right, that's a side effect, right? This function by right shouldn't be changing anything outside of its scope, okay? But in app development, you can't help it, right? You need side effects. That's where the name use effect comes from. Okay, manually updating your JSX is considered a side effect as well. Okay, so mount, update, dismount. Let's get started with databases. I'm going to skip past this section. If anyone's interested in SQL, I have some links for you, right? A beginner's guide to SQL, SQL Bolt, Codecademy, is ranked from like a time taken to finish. I think I cannot guarantee I've actually done all of these. All right, but yeah. So databases, okay, databases. Most of what you do with databases: create, read, update, destroy. And there are two types. We'll be working with both types. Today, we'll be working with relational databases where you organize data into one or more tables and they have columns and rows and keys and things like that. There's also document-based databases, and these will store data in like JSON, okay? And if you've done MySQL, SQLite should be pretty straightforward for you, okay? This is the difference. SQLite is a file-based database. You don't actually need a server. Here's a big screenshot I took. Okay, so let's get started with our app. Okay, so here's what it looks like. All right, I got very confused when I was creating this app. I have to tell you, right? So it's not add your to-do list, add your note. Okay, it's add your notes. But I treated all of these as to-do items. Okay, so almost the same as far as I can tell. Okay, so you're able to do the 4 major operations. Create. This is what's happening on the screen right now. You're creating a note or to-do item. You can read, which means you can see all the stuff that you got. You can delete. You saw my delete. And I don't think we're implementing update, right? Update is a little bit more tricky. Okay, so let's get started. This one I'll skip past. The Expo documentation as an example to-do list app, right? It's made with SQLite. If you're ever interested, this is what it looks like. Okay, so you just type something in, press enter, it'll show up over here. You tap on it, it'll move to completed. Okay, so if you're interested, do take a look at that. I am going to get you to get started with it. Set up a new project, right? So we need to install SQLite. Okay, so we need to install SQLite. Yeah, for Expo Web, right? This is something that I realized in one of my classes. if you're using a non-Chrome browser, non-Chrome based browser, you cannot use Expo-SQLite. So you can't use Safari, you can't use Firefox, essentially lah. Okay, so just be aware. I'm using Brave. Brave is a Chromium-based browser, so it should be fine. So let's go install it. Where's my? There you go. Expo install Expo SQLite. Okay, so this will take a while. Oh, that was fast. Okay, and what this does is it modifies our package.json. Those of you who are new to node-based projects, package.json is the list of dependencies for this project. When I push to GitHub, my node modules is not pushed to GitHub. Instead, someone has to type npm install to get everything, including everything into the node modules, right? Based on these particular versions and dependencies and things like that. Okay, so here's how to import it. And at this point, I just want to just quickly mention that there are many ways to import stuff in React, right? In this way of using imports, right? And you might have even seen other ways. If you've done Node web development, you've seen require, right? We're just not using that. Okay, so you've seen all these different things. Import React from React. This one imports the default thing. Okay, this imports the default thing and one non-default thing from the React library. This just imports a non-default thing from React Native. This is when we import something locally, right? We've been doing this. And this one over here just means import everything, right? And we use it as SQLite dot something. Okay, I think that covers it. All right. So this part, if I were doing a class, I would actually tell people how to do it, right? But for now, I just treat it as a demo, how to get your React navigation stuff working. Okay, so I need a stack. I don't need a tab. So I'm going to go over to this thing over here, and I'm going to go search my history for stack. Where's my stack? Expo install, npm install. There it is. All right, paste and enter. Okay, so I've installed all the necessary things. This is probably a good time to push, right? Git add dot and git commit -m, added Expo SQLite and React navigation stack. Oops. Okay, once again, those of you on Expo Stack, right? If you want to install SQLite, Expo SQLite, you can just grab this line, right? Put it in, and it'll ask you to get the dependency. Okay, so what do we need to do? We want to get this thing set up. All right, so I'm just going to cheat and look at my answers. So this is a note screen, okay, and the note screen has nothing on it right now, but it's got an app, it's got a stack navigator, it's got a stack, right? And the stack over here has some interesting options, which I think are useful for you to know about. All right. Oh, thanks for Gabriel sending out the installation commands. Okay. All right, so let me go add this stuff inside my app.js. And you know what? I'm also going to npm start so that I can see this thing in action. Okay, start. Open in iOS simulator. Okay, so if you're opening for a different project, you might need to press Control Command Z, or for Android, I'm not sure what the equivalent is, and then just reload. I can force it to press reload by pressing R over here. And you should get this progress bar will fill up and you should get that thing. All right. So I'm going to make a note screen, right? So function notes screen. Okay, and it will return. What do I want to return? I will just return a view with a style of container. Okay, so return view style equals to container. Well, a view should have a stash view now. Okay, so and over here, my app now becomes a stack. So to do that, I need to say const stack equals to create stack navigator, right? I'm going to rely on autocomplete to it did not. I thought I was going to try and rely on autocomplete to install it for me, but it didn't. So I need to import create stack navigator from React navigation /stack. Okay. And inside here, this is no longer just a bunch of views. It's a stack dot. Actually, no, sorry. For an overall app, you need a navigation container, right? And inside navigation container, then you can have a stack dot navigator. And inside there, you can have a stack dot screen, right? Stack dot screen that needs a name, notes, and a component, which is notes screen. At this point, I don't have a navigation container because I need to import that as well. So import navigation container from React navigation /native. Okay, what else do I need? Oh, right, styles.container. Okay, so there you go. Here's my little note screen. Okay, and I will add that all the styling that you see inside there before I push it to GitHub. Okay. So we're gonna explore some of these options inside here. So we're gonna say options equals double curly brace. Okay. And what options do I want? Okay, the options is I have a header title. Sure, let's give it a header title. Notes app. Okay, so now I can have one name for the stack screen and one name for the header title. That's nice. What else do I have? I have header title style, which I think is a pretty useful thing to have. So let's try that. Header title style equals to, colon, and it takes another object, which, you know what? Let's go look up the stack React navigation stack options. All right, I'm pretty sure we looked at this before, but we do want to try and screen options, I think. Okay, so title, header left, we saw that just now. All right, and there's some other stuff we can do. Not very good at this Googling for answers thing. Header title. Okay, so header title and header title align, right? So maybe you want to align it left, right? Header title style. Okay, doesn't actually tell me very much about it, unfortunately. Okay, but header title style is I'm sure it's somewhere out there. I must have figured it out somewhere, right? But it's called font weight and font style. So this is just a style, right? It's just a style object. Okay, so font weight bold, font size 30. All right, nice and big. Okay, and maybe we want to give the header style some style as well. So you see all these things, right? These are all just style objects. And if you really wanted, okay lah, if you really wanted it to be nice and proper, you could say styles.header title style, right? Then you could have a proper header title style over here. Oops. And you could have a header style over here, right? So header style makes your code easier to read. Like you don't put it all in line, right? Styles.header style. Okay, now you can have a height of 120, where it's a little bit more space. That's a way too much space, unfortunately. Hit 80, maybe you have a background color of yellow, or maybe yellow is a bit much. That's AA0 perhaps. Oh, yucks. Okay, AA9. All right, whatever. And background color yellow, border bottom color, and you can do all kinds of stuff. You can do borders and things like that. So let me just show you that real quick. Border bottom width of 3, border bottom color of green. Okay, all right. So very very earth colored thing. Okay, and then of course I can change the background color of this to some grayish color. CD. Okay, all right. Okay, so this is good enough for me to commit. All right, I'm going to send this up. All right, whoa. I'm going to open up a new terminal window and git add dot git commit -m added stack to screen and styled header. Good push. Okay, any questions so far? Right, this is all stuff we've done before. We haven't started creating notes and things like that. What's next? Next, we need the button. Okay, we need a button, right? And you press this button, you want people to be able to add a new note, but for now, we just console.log. This is very similar to what we just did in the Kueh Lapis app. Okay, so I'm going to add a little icon over here, right? And we will get that going. Okay, so for this, you have to use the use effect again, right? And I will see if I can remember, right? But it's a bit troublesome, right? So over here, this goes inside my note screen, right? Again, this goes inside the screen who is being presented. Okay, this screen will go and tell its header to update itself. Okay, because the header is not part of the header is not part of this function. Okay, the header is not part of this function. So I'm going to say use effect. So I need use effect. I'm going to import React, use effect. Down here, I'm going to call use effect. And I know I want this to run every single time. So I'm not going to have any second argument for this. And I'm going to go set the options of my navigation, or I need my navigation prop as well. Okay, so this is me, I truly don't remember half this code. I cannot like give it to you from memory, right? Unlike your, your Udemy instructors or whatever. I'm really just trying to show you, well, I forgot this, I forgot that, and here's how you recover from all this. Okay, so I need my navigation prop because I need that in order to set the navigation.set header. Again, it doesn't autocomplete properly. Set options. No autocomplete. Set options. So options takes in an object, and it's got a header left, no header right. Header right is a function where I can return some kind of UI elements. Finally, okay. So what do I want to return? I want to return a little icon. Okay, but the icon must be clickable, so I got to put it inside the touchable opacity. So let me go to my icon browsing site, icons.expo.fyi. Let's go. No, you know what? We don't have to limit ourselves to font awesome this time. Let's go new. Now, new message. This is not bad. Or maybe let's see what else. Compose. No, we don't want the composer icon. No PHP for us. Let's go to new. All right, new message. That's good enough. Let's click on this. How to use it? Great. Let's copy this import. Stuff it over here. Let's copy this render component and stuff it over here. Let's go check our code. Don't have. Where is it? Okay, so this one, let me just check whether I did anything wrong. Feel free to tell me if you spot it, by the way. Note screen, use effects, header right. Could be a typo or some kind. Hang on. Navigation.set options. Let me look at my code and that code real quick. So like I said before, it's very easy to get things wrong because, I could have just typed header right wrongly accidentally, and then it would just be like, that doesn't exist. So I'm not setting anything for you. But let me just check. I know. All right. This thing over here. Okay, this thing over here is a curly brace. Yeah. So it's actually a function, right? It's not actually returning this. Okay, so this is a good point for me to just show you the difference between some of these like shorthands in JavaScript. Oh, thanks, Carl. All right, so over here, okay, I could do this, return. And there you go, right? It pops up over there. Okay, in my sample code though, I don't have a return. Okay, I don't have a return. What do I have in my sample code? Let's take a look. I just have round parentheses. Okay, the round parentheses are a shorthand for return some JSX UI elements. Okay, so when you do that, change this to a round parentheses, delete all this. You also have to delete, just have to be very careful what you delete. Delete the curly braces and close bracket, and there you go. Prettier has decided that it doesn't need the round brackets after all, so it just becomes like this. Okay, so yes. All right, so it's super annoying, but yes. All right, however I do need to wrap this inside a touchable opacity. So touchable opacity on press equals to console.log hello, close bracket, close curly brace. What else? Close angle bracket, and then put this outside of this. Thanks, prettier. Okay, so I don't have touchable opacity, so I'm going to go and import it. Okay, great. So now if I press this button, press, and I look at my logs, it's going to say hello to me. Okay, so once again, still nothing new, right? Still nothing new. It's just setting things up, right? Setting things up and realizing some of these little, JavaScript syntax things that we never quite realized. Okay, yeah. So this is pretty much of a shorthand of a shorthand, which is okay. Anyway, let me commit this and send it up. And I think we'll take a short break. If anyone needs to go around and stretch a little bit, I think we're okay on time today. All right, so I need to go and get some water to drink. Right, so add icon to the top right. Git push. Okay, so let's take a short break. We'll resume at 3:50. All right, 3:50. And if you want to pick up from where I am, and if the distance of this thing from the right hand side bothers you, you can go ahead and add a margin. Yeah, please come back at 3:50, 3:50, and we will continue on our app development. Okay. Okay, we're back. So a couple of questions. Good to quickly explain. I guess, yeah. So this is one thing that I think I glossed over this a little bit, right? This slash closing angle bracket. Okay, this means that this is a self-closing tag, right? Unlike touchable opacity, which does have a opening tag and a closing tag. Okay. Those of you coming from HTML, you might be used to having a self-closing tag just be like that. This is, however, an error in JSX. Okay, it's a stricter form of XML, if you will. Okay, so yeah. Let's see, what else should I? How to add margin to the icon? Okay, let me add margin. Okay, so this one, to add margin to the icon, I'm gonna add a style to this thing. Style equals to margin right 10. Yeah. Okay, so that's all, right? So I'm adding a bit of a margin to the right-hand side of this little icon over here. Okay, so I hope that helps. If that's bothering anyone, I'm sure it's bothering some people, but okay. Okay, so let's continue, right? See if there are any other Q&As. Okay, cool. All right. So now let's actually go and add stuff. Okay, so this one really is like a step-by-step tutorial. So if you can't follow now, it's okay. You can try again later, but there's a lot of stuff going on inside. So I want to try and get through it today, and hopefully you can do the online database stuff tomorrow. Okay. So okay, so next, right? We need to. Okay, so this one, if I were conducting as a class, I would ask people to go and import the SQLite library and open a database when the file is loaded. I do have a point to note though. So first things first, this is how you import the SQLite database. Let's go do that. So import *as SQLite from expo-SQLite. Okay, simple enough. And when you start your app, you create a database. Okay, so SQLite dot open database, and then you give it a name, notes.db. All right. So now if I reload my entire app, I should actually have a file called notes.db somewhere inside my phone's file system. And I want to emphasize this point, okay? Because some people get a bit confused at this point. They're like, open database. Don't have where's my notes.db? You bluff me one, don't have. No, okay? The notes.db, right, is not going to show up in your working folder. It's going to show up inside in this case, the phone or the simulators folder. Okay. If I wanted to try hard enough, I could go and find notes.db. Let me, I guess, I'm not sure if I'll regret this, but I'm going to try finding notes.db. Okay. No, it's not in my default search folder. It's buried somewhere inside my simulator. And you know what? I can try and find it. Library / you know what, forget it. All right. I have a demo somewhere in the slides which shows you how to actually find this thing inside your folders if you really, really want to try hard enough. Okay. But it's somewhere in the phone. Okay. This also means that if you were running this on an actual phone, right? If you actually go and scan your thing and you ran it, all right, then you wouldn't have access to it, right? It would be buried somewhere deep inside your phone. You could probably have some utility on Android. Maybe you can easily get to it. iOS, there's probably some utility app to go and find those files for you, right? But it's not that easy to find. Okay, it's not that easy to find. So yeah, that's one of the key misunderstandings. It's not going to show up here. All right, it's not like you're creating a web backend and stuff actually shows up in the same folder, right? If you work that way. Okay, if you're really interested in where it is, I think I have here, right? So here. Okay, so you can look through it, the file system using the Expo file system library. I have a video of where someone, I think it was me, demoed how to actually do this. So if you want, you can go click on it and try it out. Okay. There's a small chance that the video doesn't work. If any of your links don't work, let me know. Just let me know in ed. All right. Okay. So that's the idea, right? That's the idea. Okay, for task 3. Next thing, right, we're gonna have this have a flat list, okay, a flat list of note items, not to-dos. I really need to fix these slides, okay? Each one will have a title, an ID, and a done. Huh? Okay, so this is a to-do. Okay, I've seriously forgotten whether when I made this, I intended for this to be a to-do list or a notes app, right? Just live with this mild schizophrenia for a while, okay? I'm very sorry. Okay, so we'll have a title, an ID, and a done, right? We're going to create a state variable array of this and display it in the flat list. Ignore the done boolean. You see lah? Like, I don't know what I was doing last time. I think I did all this at 3 a.m. Okay, anyway, excuse me. Yeah. All right. How do you know the file is called notes.db? Oh, you can call it anything you want, right? You can call it anything you want. Okay, so you don't have to call it notes.db, right? But it's useful to call it different. Let's say you want to reset your entire notes database and you're like too lazy to go and find it and delete it. Then you can go and, I don't want this anymore. Let's do notes11.db. Also can, right? Also can. That's one way of getting rid of not using your old version anymore. Okay. In a production quality app, you probably want to do something better than notes.db maybe, but for us, this is fine. Okay. So I'm going to concentrate on doing the flat list, right? So I'm going to say, well, const sample notes, sample to-dos. I still haven't quite decided whether sample notes or sample to-dos. Let's do sample notes equals to, let's have an object, right? When object it's got a title string, title walk the cat. It's got a ID of 0. We'll use the same ID, convention. And we'll have a done boolean, done false. Okay, so I just have a few of these. Let's have a few of these. Let's water the plants or water the cat also can. Let's buy some milk, buy the milk, and let's water the milk. Okay, make sure they all have different IDs, right? Make sure they all have different IDs and they're all not done. And I want to display this inside my notes app, right? So how do I do that? Let's go down here after use effect. And by the way, I think many of you know about this. You can, if you find that there's too much stuff going on, you can fold your code. So this use effect, very big, lots of stuff going on. Never need to see it again, right? Move your cursor next to it, next to the line number, and press that thing, and it will be compressed down to 2 lines. Okay. So inside this, right, I'm going to say return this view, and inside this view, there's going to be a flat list. Flat list as a data of sample notes for now. All right. And it's got a render item equals to render item. Okay. And if I save this, I also need to import flat list. And I need to create a render item function. Item, right? Remember to put this item within curly brackets. And I'm just going to return text item.title. Okay, so every single time I render on these, it's going to show a piece of text that's got the title of it. So here we go, right? That's very nice. It's got walk the cat, water the cat, buy the milk, water the milk, right? World's worst to-do list, but not bad. All right, if I wanted to style this a bit, sure. All right, so the flat list, I'm going to say style equals to styles.list. Okay, and for the list, maybe I will have a width of 100%. And yep, so with 100%, we'll flush everything to the left, and maybe that's it for now. Okay, and for each of the items, maybe I don't want it to be inside a text. I want it to be in a view with a certain style. Style equals to styles.list item. Right, and let me move this view over here and move this view over here. And let's get rid of list item. So this item, we can give it a height of 80, right? Whoa, that's a lot. Height of 40. And we want to justify content to the center. And we maybe give every one of them a border bottom width of 1 and a border bottom color of black. Okay, this autocomplete thing is kind of annoying, but okay, right, maybe not black. Let's just do a nice little shade of gray. Right, one of the 50 shades, right, #999. All right, so good enough, right? Good enough. Okay. Pardon me as I ramble on as I do all this. Maybe I need to give it a bit of a margin left. Maybe the text itself needs a bit of margin, but or I can just give some padding. Padding left of 20. Okay, can. Right. All right. So all this is up to you how you want to do all this. And okay, but I've done a version where I have just sample nodes, right? However, this is not a state variable. So I do want the state variable to so that I can actually add to it. So let's do use state over here. Okay. And over here, I'm just going to say const nodes set nodes equals to use state. And as a start, I'm just going to use state with my sample nodes. I'll use this as my starting value. And I'm going to change this so that my data is not sample nodes, but nodes. No difference, right? No difference. Okay. All right. So still nothing new, right? Still nothing new. Still no databases or anything. Okay. But at the very least, we know how we can lay out one of these to-do list apps. Okay. So I'm gonna set this up. Git app dot git commit dash m blah, blah, blah. Added sample list and flat list. Okay. No questions so far, hopefully. All right. So we've done this and we've done this. Okay. And now, all right, so this next part is a little bit annoying and troublesome, but I still think it's something that we should do. We want to add a modal, right? Because I think someone asked in Ed on yesterday or something, how do you overlay something on another, right? How do you have a screen that pops up? Okay. You often want some kind of pop-up screen that's not part of the stack. All right. Can you imagine if you had a new over here, let's say my simulator, if I press this new button and then the new screen slid in from the right and there's a back arrow, that would be a very weird piece of UI. Okay, that would be a very weird piece of UI. Just imagine imagine if I press new and then this new screen came on to the screen as a stack, right? And then there'll be a back arrow. Why? Because what happens if you try and type into it? If you try and type into it, do you press the back arrow in order to go back? In your mind, now you have this nagging uncertainty, which is like, am I saving this? Is it being saved? All right. Or, it doesn't make any sense, right? Maybe but if there's a done button over here, yeah. So, I mean, maybe I should probably sketch this out somewhere instead of trying to ask you to imagine. But if I press this button and a new screen slides in and I get a back arrow, maybe I could put a done arrow. I could put a done button over here. I put a done button over there. What happens? Does it slide back off? That is also very strange, at least for iOS users. Okay, so the way iOS does it, right, is you have this thing called modal. It pops up from the bottom, right, and you press either cancel or send. Okay, and you don't get a chance to accidentally go back, right, by swiping from left to right. Android, I think it's a little bit blurrer, right, the idea based on what I know about the Android UI. Right, but I think there's still a space for modals, which means you pop up over the screen, you take over the entire screen to get the user's attention. Right, this is what you should focus on right now. Okay, so a modal essentially is part of a stack. Okay, so let me show you. This is what it looks like right now. Okay. Yes, Android, yes, overlay. That's right. So thanks, Wantao. So Android fragments, right, can do overlays on top of the screen. It's been a while since I've done Android, like pure Android. So thanks for that. Okay, so if I wanted to put a modal for my new to do, right, which essentially looks like this. Let me show you. Right, you press that, boom, it comes up. Okay, so that's what the modal looks like. You need to do this. You need to change from this to this. Okay, so your overall stack now has to be in a modal mode. Okay, and you add this thing over here called add screen, and now your node stack is its own stack. Okay, I hope that kind of makes sense. All right, and then what you need to do when you want to show add screen is actually quite straightforward. You just where's my thing over here? You just need to, where's my button? You just need to where's my, okay, header title, header style, header, where's my button? add screen. Okay. On press navigation dot go back, navigation dot. Okay, you know what? I might have copied over my slides wrongly, but I'm pretty sure I've done it properly. It's okay. You know what? Let me just start creating this until it works. Okay. So, all right. But the general idea is you just do navigation.navigate to it. Okay. You just use navigation.navigate and it will, and if you set it up properly, it should work. Okay. So let me just demo this real quick. Not very quick, but okay. So first things first, right? This thing right here, okay. This thing right here is actually going to be my this stack is going to be my node stack. Okay. And I actually want to contain it within another stack.navigator, which will make the node stack next to the modal. All right. So let's try that. Let's try getting that to work. In order to do that, I think what I want to do is I want to refactor my screen out. Okay, so let's do screens. And I'm going to grab plus here for nodes stack.js. Okay. And I'm going to just import a whole bunch of stuff, right? So import. Okay, so this is going to be my node stack. Wait. Hang on, I'm debating whether I want to have it in one file. You know what? Let's have it in one file. All right, so sorry about that. Ignore that. Okay, so let me delete this. Let's just have it in one file and we will continue. Okay, so what I need is I need an inner stack and I need an outer stack. Okay, so in order to do that, I need a node stack and we call it, we can have it with a different name. Okay, so I'm going to have this const node stack equals to create stack navigator. All right. And so outside we have this stack.navigator. We're going to have a node stack.navigator within which we have stack.screen for our nodes. Okay, navigators within navigators. So far, okay, right? Okay. Next, what we want to do is we want to, next to this stack.navigator, we want a simple pop-up screen, right? So I'm going to define this pop-up screen over here called add screen. Okay, and add screen will, of course, just return text add exclamation mark. Okay, a very simple screen for now. And we're going to add this over here. This thing is stack.screen. Name equals to add. Component equals to add screen. Okay, so this is next to this. All right. And what else do I need to do? I need to, well, there's a whole bunch of add screen over here, stuff over here, which I haven't done yet. All right. But I just want to make it pop up. Okay. Now, this node stack. That's right. Okay. So yeah, stack.screen is a node stack. I suspect I need to put this into its own thing as well. Okay. So I need to function nodes stack. I need to return. So this is a bit of a mess, I have to admit, right? But just bear with me for a bit, right? Bear with me for a bit. Okay. And now I have to embed this thing inside a node stack. So stack.screen name equals to nodes stack. Component equals to node stack. Okay. And I have to turn off the header, otherwise I have multiple headers. Failed to compile. Node stack has already been declared. All right. I have a function node stack. I can't call this node stack because that's called node stack. So let's call this nodes stack screen. And this thing is nodes stack screen. Okay, so right now I have this ridiculous scenario, right, where I have put my stack inside another stack navigator. Okay, I'm gonna hide this outer thing because it doesn't make sense for it to be there. So to do that, I'm going to use options equals to header shown false. All right, so options equals to header shown false. And this thing needs to have another set of curly braces around it. Okay, so we're back to normal, right? We still have this thing over here. It still shows normally. Finally, I have this add screen, which I want it to be able to pop up when I press this button over here. Okay, I need to make a few more settings changes. And that one thing is the stack.navigator. I need to change the mode equals to modal. So mode equals to modal. Okay, and finally, when this button over here, right? It currently says console.log hello, right? I'm going to have this thing where it just navigation.navigate add. Okay. What does mode equals modal do? I can show you what it does. Okay, so let's take a look, right? So if I do plus, whoa, hang on. Cannot update a component from, whoops. Okay, let me go and figure out what mistake I made of the whole chunk of stuff that I did. So let me just give me a moment. Let me just try and fix all these up. All right, so let me go take a look at what warnings I got. Maybe there was something there. All right, let me quickly compare this, right? So for the example code I have here, right, it's got node stack and it's got inner stack.navigator. All this is stuff that we have, okay? And then the add screen has a whole bunch of stuff which we don't actually use just yet, okay? Finally, we have a stack.navigator and header mode equals to none. And I do have some sample code over here, so let me just check to make sure that it's all right there. Okay, my add note is just navigation.navigate add note. Yeah, should be fine. Okay, so let's take a short break, right? Give me a few minutes to try and fix up this issue. All right, but I won't actually push it yet. But do take a look at the slides, and I'll try and see if I can figure out the issue as I go along. Stack.navigator equals to node stack.screen. Oh, good point. Yes. All right. So over here, you're right. This is the wrong thing. Thank you, Siddharth. All right. Very observant. All right. So yes, I was using the wrong stack. I was putting this screen into the wrong, I was putting this thing into the wrong stack. Okay, I think that should work. Let's try. All right. Let's save this. Let's reload the entire thing. Okay, and stack.screen. I mean, I can think. Ah, okay. I think I know why. This thing over here is not wrapped inside the function. Okay, so I think that's it. Okay, all right. So that was a comedy of errors, but thank you so much, Siddharth. I really appreciate your that very observant thing that you did. Okay, so yes, Siddharth is right. I missed out on this thing. I put stack.screen. Let me collect my breath and try and explain from the beginning. Okay, I've made a huge mess out of this, but I think it kind of works. So I'm just going to push it first and let me try and explain it. Okay, so git add dot git commit -m added in a modal git push. Do you know why the sample app was done this way? The sample app for Notes app, right? I had it open just now. The sample app didn't have a new screen. Okay, the sample app had everything on one screen, right? So that's because modals are somewhat annoying to work with. All right, let me try and explain this as best I can. Okay, so beforehand, our app was very simple. It had a navigation container, it had a stack navigator, and inside it had a screen which contained the notes screen. Now what we've done is we have embedded the note screen into a note stack. Okay, let's scroll up and see the note stack. This is pretty much what we had before, right? This note stack right here is I just say, hey, let's stuff this into another box. Okay, it used to be in a big box. Let's stuff it into a slightly smaller box, right? And put the slightly smaller box into the big box. Okay. What else goes inside the big box though? Next to the slightly smaller box, now there's this other screen called the add screen. Okay, here's the add screen. And we've changed this thing from normal into mode equals to modal, right? And I'll turn off these two to show you what they do afterwards. Now, everything else all remains the same except for my touchable opacity. It should no longer just console.log. It should set up a navigate, right? So you'll actually go and navigate to this thing called add. Okay, so interestingly enough, note screen is buried inside note stack screen, which is inside the overall navigation container. It can still find add. Okay, it can still find add, even though by itself is only, it thinks that it's by itself inside this navigator. It can still find this add that's somewhere else inside the navigation stack. Okay, so but the good thing is when you navigate to this particular modal, right? Okay, when you have modal mode on, what you'll do is you'll pop up rather than push in. So let's take a look. All right, so this is what we get. We click on this, it pops up, right? The add button has now, collided with the top of my screen. We'll fix that later. You can drag it down and it will go away. Okay, what happens if I don't use modal? Let's see. Okay, if I don't use modal, it will push in over my entire inner navigation stack. Okay, it doesn't push in. It doesn't push in here. It doesn't maintain this title bar and push in, right? That's because this is adjacent to one of the other things and it's trying to push it over, right? For the benefit of people watching the recording who can't see my video, all right, it's just shifting in. Okay. Yeah, so that's what happens with modal off, right? If header mode is off, this is what happens. If header mode is off, I believe this thing will come in with a header, which will be super weird. All right. This will come in with a header and you press back and it will drop down, which is very strange on iOS. Okay. So that's why we have to put in all these different things. Okay. So that's what to do on web. Yeah, you can't drag it down. So let's go add in a button to remove it. Okay. Let's go fix this thing over here. All right. So what I'll do is I'll have a view, right? View style equals to container, styles.container, that's good enough. Okay. Luckily, we have a decent container style, I think. All right, so let's click on it and see. Yep, there you go. Now we just need a button that's on press equals to navigation dot button. Anybody? There it is. Go back. All right, navigation.go back. And again, I keep forgetting this. You have to embed it inside a function call. Okay, you can't just give it the function itself. Okay, title equals to back. All right, I need to give this the navigation prop. And now whoops, cannot find button, sorry. Let's try this one last time. Back. Okay, all right. So of course you wouldn't have a back button over here. Yeah, you might have you might keep the header, right? Then you have a done button in the header or something like that. But let's just do it this way, right? Press back or cancel, done or cancel. Okay, so let me commit this. All right, we're almost at the part where we work with the database, okay? This is the part where I tell people to split out the following files. I'm going to skip that. Okay, I'm going to skip that because it's it's good to do, but we don't need to do it right now. We are going to skip ahead to letting people enter text, which might be something you might want to do in your exam, not exam, your hackathon. Okay. Okay, there's a React Native modal element. That's right. Okay, so the React Native modal, let's try it. I haven't used it in a while. All right, I haven't used it in a while. So let's try it real quick. So let me see. If I push this into Expo Snack, I can run it on the web. So that's the nice thing about the React Native docs. They're now integrated into Expo. So you press this. I'm gonna go. This is what so there's a question here from Ria, I think, right? So there's this thing called modal. All right, so let's try. So does it actually work? I guess is my question.
No, I think the model is already there.
It's already there, right? Okay. So hang on. Is there any way to dismiss it?
I think the hide model button.
It doesn't. The hide model doesn't do anything. I'm very confused.
Oh, okay.
Question mark. This could be one of those things that only works on iOS and Android. So I'm going to leave this in the background and let's go read the documentation because there are 27 people ahead of us. All right. So yes, there is a modal component to present content above an enclosing view. Okay. And I think it's I think it looks slightly different. You saw what it looked like. Okay. And I think this modal is a little bit more like your Bootstrap modal, which takes up part of the screen and fades out the rest, if I remember correctly. Okay, so far I haven't used this in a while, so I have to admit, right? But do investigate it if it's easier to use than what the nonsense that I just had to do. I think that could be pretty worthwhile. Also, my queue position is not running, so actually, you know what? Copy. All right. Nice thing about this is that in theory, this should work, right? So let's see this thing. Here you go. All right. Did everyone get that? Oh, the height doesn't work. All right. So let me show you that one more time. I quite literally just copied and pasted it into my app.js because I figure I can always undo. So this is the modal, from the native modal from React Native. Okay. It's got animation type, it's got transparent, it's got visible. It looks pretty nice. I should consider changing my syllabus to use this. Okay, so if I click on show modal, oh, nice, pops up pretty nicely. Okay, and there's an animation type, which I presume I can change into other things. Animation type equals to fade. All right, and let's try. Where's my modal? Okay, right, that's pretty nice. Okay, so and because it's native, it could autocomplete fade for me. All right, visible equals modal visible. This is a state variable. Okay, this is something to think about. The way this sort of modal works is you put it on the screen, you leave it inside your view somewhere. Okay, and when it's supposed to be visible, you set this to be true. When it's not supposed to be visible, you set it to be false. Right. So this one, for some reason, the hide button should work. What? I'm not sure why the hide button doesn't work because the hide button, yes, the hide button. Pressable style equals to on press equals set modal visible, not modal visible. Correct. Okay, I'm not sure why it doesn't work, but feel free to try it out. Okay, but yeah, I think this might actually be a better alternative to trying to use the React navigation ones. Okay, and also because then you might not need to pass around so much data, right? Which is a problem that we'll run into later. We need to pass data between our screens, which is a little bit troublesome. Okay, so thanks Ria for pointing this out. I will look into it, and yeah, if anyone's interested in this, we can post a link to. Let me just post a link to this modal documentation into our workshop. Right, so alternative modal. Right, simply better. Right, thanks. Okay, appreciate it. Now I need to undo it so that I still have my code. Undo. Okay, here's my code. Let's refresh this thing. Wait, where is it? Undo, save. Okay, there you go. Here's my app. Okay, so that's one of the nice things about this sort of text-based UI, right? If this were Android Studio, right, or iOS Xcode with storyboards, it wouldn't be so easy to just take someone else's code and just dump it in and run. Okay, but since our UI is built completely with code, right, it's quite literally paste into app.js can already. Okay, Android Studio, you want to do that? Wow, it's a lot of files to replace. Right, same for Xcode and storyboards. All right, let's continue. So text input, right? Text input is another native input component, right? Notice how, oops, we missed out on changing this to smart text. Okay, it allows people to enter text. Now, there's one thing about working with text input in a declarative language, like a declarative framework like React. Okay, when you have a text input, you kind of need it to be tied to a state variable. Every time it changes, it's going to update the state variable. Okay, so that's called a controlled component, right? React controls what's in the value of the input. You could have it a different way. You could have it such that you type finish, all right? Then you move your mouse or whatever, right? Or press enter, then it gets saved into a variable, a state variable. Okay, so it's kind of like but that means that the UI and the memory have kind of dissociated, right? And we don't want that. We generally don't want that in React. We want the UI to be a function of the state. Okay, right? The UI is a function of the state. I could make a joke here about politics, but I will avoid it. Okay, so what happens here is that we want it such that every time someone types something in, the state variable changes, and we do that using the onChangeText prop and the onSubmit editing prop. Okay, so here's what you do, right? So this is an example, right? We're gonna have a text input, we're gonna have a submit button and a cancel button, and down here, just to prove our point, right? We're gonna re-render the state variable, and it's going to keep on updating every time we type something into it. Okay, so let's try that. All right, so first things first, I need to go and find where my add screen is in my giant chunk of notes, right? So I'm going to just, yeah, here it is. Right, let's make our lives a bit easier by minimizing some of our functions and things, right? Makes life a bit easier to navigate. What will make it even easier is if we moved out all the stuff into separate lines of code, but for now, we're not going to do that. So we're going to have a title that says add your to-do. Okay, we're going to have a text input. Okay, and make sure that it's importing from the right place. Great, text input. Text input is going to take in a onChangeText prop. Okay, and this onChangeText prop is a function that actually receives a new text, and you must set text to it. Okay, here's what I mean. So I will do this first. All right. Okay, sorry, I can't do this without adding. So I need to go and add my state variable. So let's call this to-do text. To-do text set to-do text equals to use state. Okay, we've seen use state with numbers, we've seen use state with arrays. For this, we need a use state with an empty string. Okay, it's an empty string. And now we say, okay, inside this, we have a function that needs to know what happens with the input that it receives. Okay, so it receives this text input. And what you have to do is, actually, you don't need bracket. You receive this text input and you set your to-do text to match it. Okay. Technically, you don't need these brackets, but Prettier enforces it. All right. And that's your text input right there. So right now, if you open this up, you have a text input here. Believe me, you have a text input over here. It's very hard to see, okay? Because there is absolutely no styling attached to it. Okay, so let's fix that. Let's give it some style. Style equals to styles.text input. Okay, and if I scroll down, go and find my styles, find a place to edit my styles. For text input, I can give it maybe a border. I think a border color would be nice, right? Border color of black. Maybe a padding. some space from the sides for maybe like 5. And I think I could do with background color, right? Background color, it could be white. There you go, right? A little bit nicer. And then I kind of give some margin of 10, give it a bit of space. And for some reason, this thing is ridiculously tiny and it just expands. That's not what text input is supposed to look like. Let's give it a width of 90%. Okay, all right, that's slightly better. I think that works decently well. Okay, so hopefully you get the idea behind styling the thing. One of the key things is when you create text input, a lot of people are like, huh, where is it? Right, just remember you have to style it. Okay, this is not a case of giving it a width. You kind of need to make it visible. All right, so what happens is every time someone keys something in, if I type in the letter A here, now my to-do text becomes A. Okay, if I type in letter B, my to-do text becomes AB. And to prove this point, I could just add a text here that just re-renders to-do text. To-do text. Okay, so now you have this thing where it just like follows along. Whee! Okay, then this would be inordinately troublesome to do in regular JavaScript. Right, this would be so much trouble to do in regular JavaScript, but it's so easy to do in React, right, and React Native. Okay, so that's one of the nice things about this declarative JavaScript frameworks. You just say, hey, let's link this to this, and then forevermore, this to-do text will be linked to that. Okay. All right, so what else do I need? I needed 2 buttons. And submit will dismiss and go back, right? And cancel will dismiss and go back for now. Okay, so let's do that. So I'll be lazy and I won't style my buttons this time around. So I'm just going to have one for submit and one for cancel. Okay, this is my not so nice version of my to-do. Oh wait, it's not to-do, it's notes. Add your note. Okay, right, so I press cancel, off it goes. Yeah, I press submit, off it goes. Okay, right, so that's just styling with text inputs. Surprisingly easy, I feel, right, working with text inputs. There's a question here about the default behaviors for back buttons. I'm actually not very sure, I don't think I'm qualified to tell you this. If you don't mind posting it on Ed, I think we're happy to check around with our mentors. Maybe they know something better, because I'm not an Android user. I haven't done pure Android development for many years, so I don't think I'm qualified to give you an answer for this. But Gabriel or Carl or Anhui, if you have an opinion on this, feel free. And if you whoever's asking this, if you're curious, you can go and ask on Ed. Maybe someone will see it and they can give you a better idea. But good question. I honestly don't know. Right, I'm not sure. I think you're supposed to work with the back button. That's my impression. I'm sure there's some like user interface guidelines that I don't know about. Okay. Someone just raised their hand. If you have a suggestion for that, let us know. I'm gonna put the question into answer live so that anyone can see it. Right. If you have any inputs, feel free to put it in the chat or the Q&A. Happy to share. Right. The webinar mode means you can't actually talk to one another. Right. But you can pass messages to us and we can send it to you. Okay. Okay. Why am I thumbs upping my laptop? Okay. Anyway, so I think we're almost at the point where we can add stuff to our database. All right, obsessively working towards actually being able to add stuff to our database. Okay, we are at the part 7. We have created a text input. Good. Now, right now we need to send data backwards. And the reason why I went through all this trouble of setting up our model in the certain way is because I wanted to send data backwards from one screen to another. Okay. All right. So just now we saw, right, when we did the Kueh Lapis app, right, which feels like a lifetime ago, right? When we did the Kueh Lapis app, we send data from this screen to the next screen in the stack. How do we send data backwards to something else backwards in the stack? Okay, that's what I would like to show you right now, because we need to, when we when we open this screen, we type something in here. We type something. And then we press submit. You need to take this something and send it back to the previous screen so that you can add it to its database, right? Notwithstanding the fact that, okay lah, granted, right now our DB is visible to all these different screens, okay? But to be what do you call it, proper about it, right? By right, only Node screen should be able to edit the DB lah, huh? Okay, there's separation of concerns, your model view controllers and things like that, right? You don't want your different screens to be messing around with your data unless you're doing Redux and stuff, which I won't talk about in this course. Okay, so what should we do? Look at the slides, that's what we should do. Right, we're gonna use a callback function, right? We're gonna have a callback function, all right? And we're going to use navigation.navigate instead of go back. Okay, that's actually quite interesting. Let me show you that part real quick first. Okay, so currently when I press let's say submit, it just calls go back, right? And I know that because this submit is navigation.go back. However, if I do navigation.navigate, right, notes, is it notes stack? Let me go and look at my default stack, node stack, right? Navigation.navigate node stack. Okay, it should do the right thing. Okay, it should do the right thing. So let's try. Submit. Oh, there you go. Okay. If this were iOS, right? This is my analogy, huh? If this were iOS and you set up a segue from one screen to another, and then you tried setting a segue from the second screen back to the first screen, it will just keep on stacking things on top of your screens, right? Which would be very stupid. But that is a proper mistake that newbies will make. That's fine. Okay. Here we are saying navigation navigate, right? Instead of stacking on the node stack on top again, it knows that this thing is in a modal and it should dismiss itself to go back to the node stack. Okay, which I think is pretty cool. All right. So that's good. Which this means that we can also pass in the data here. Right. Now we can pass in some data here. We can pass in, let me see what I wanted to name it. Text. Let's call it to-do text inside here. All right. So I'm passing in the to-do text to whoever called me. And now back there, okay, they can extract the data somehow, but the extraction is a bit tricky. Okay. Oh, Siddharth has a question. Can we not pass data through go back? I don't think so. Let's go check. All right. I'm React navigation go back. Okay, so go back. Where's the why am I not being linked to the go back function? Navigation prop reference. Okay, so go back. Okay, go back will close active screen and move back in the stack. Okay, so go back method. Yep, there's nothing that doesn't take in any other arguments, unfortunately. Okay, so you can just go back. That's pretty much it. Okay. Right. Navigate, on the other hand, I think it's the one with all the special stuff that you can do. Right. It's got name and params. Okay. So good question. Right. Good question. I think set params and go back. I suspect it's doable. I've never encouraged people to do that, but feel free to try it out. Right. So I have a question from Anonymous. You might notice this thing called set params. Ooh, all right. So I think you can set params and go back, right? You update the params of the screen. And then by right, once you go back, then you just need to go and detect that the route params have changed the same way that we're going to do now. So I think can. But if you're going to do all that, why not just navigate? But sometimes maybe there's a good reason. Okay, so we have done this. All right, we've sent the data back. And now, in order to access this data, we need to use effect. Okay, we need to use effect. So this last part is use effect again. So I'm going to type something over here. I press submit. I come back to this screen. All right. We need to somehow detect that we have received data. Okay, we need to somehow detect that we have received data, and that part is a little bit tricky. Okay, so we're going to do that next. So that's inside our node screen. Right, so I'm not very happy about not having done the refactoring, but I'm just going to live with it. My note screen is up here. Okay, so this note screen, I have one use effect that's purely for the header icon over here. I'm going to hide this. Okay, now I have another use effect that is being used to detect when my route parameters have changed. Okay, that is, as far as I can tell, so I might be wrong, all right, that is, as far as I can tell, the only way to know when you have been returned to from a stack. Okay, because this use effect doesn't get caught, right? This use effect doesn't get caught, and you don't want to keep trying to add new stuff to your stack every single time. Okay, so we're going to do this. We're going to say use effect. Here's a function, all right? And this function will only trigger when route.params.text changes, right? So route.params. Oh, mine's called to do text. Okay, this will only trigger when route.params.todo text changes. And by the way, I don't have the route. I don't have route prop yet, so I'm just gonna go grab the route prop from my props. Okay, so this function, this is empty function over here, will only trigger when route.params.todo text actually changes. This question mark here is an optional, right? I might or might not have this params, okay? And we want it to not crash, right? Don't crash when there's no params, okay? But if there is, please go and check if there's to do text. So I'm just gonna do console.log route.params.todo text. I don't think I need the question mark inside here. Oh well, it is undefined. Okay, so yeah, as you can see, if I don't put a question mark, it will try and get .todo text out of the params that don't exist. Okay, so let's put a question mark there, and let's see. Right, let's look at our undefined right now. Let's go put in bananas. If I press submit, and it doesn't do anything. Hang on, wait a minute. Yeah, interesting. Question mark is not try catch. Question mark in this case is optionals. It's JavaScript optionals. So I can send you a link to it. You can read about it. But it just means that if it's null, don't do anything. Don't go and dot it. Don't go and find the part of the object after that. Me? Okay. Why doesn't it work? There's a lot of that today, unfortunately. But okay, if route.params.text. Okay, that's weird. Let me go check on my code a little bit. Right, by right, I should be receiving something inside here. Route navigation order shouldn't matter. Siddharth is asking, could it be the order? By the way, I keep moving my mouse to the left to try and reply to questions because my laptop is on the left, right? I don't have this that cool new feature for macOS 12, macOS 13 yet. Anyway, so, but you know what? Sure, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what order you destructure. Doesn't matter what order you destructure your stuff in. Submit. Still undefined. Let me think. Use effect. Let me go check my notes real quick. My add screen over here. Button on press equals to node stack and comma to do text. So it should be sending to do text back. Well, a lot of this today, but let me just check my own notes because it should work. Submit button, submit. This is just a go back version, okay. And this one just route.params. This is something I'll talk about later if anyone's curious, right? If you're working with JavaScript enough, you're like, why can't I just send a function to do essentially like a protocol, right? Sending some kind of a protocol function, but never mind. Let me check whether I'm navigating to the wrong place. Yeah, I'm trying to check whether should I be navigating to node stack or nodes? Not node stack screen. It must be all the names. But I'm wondering whether I should navigate to nodes. I should navigate to nodes, I think. Hang on. Let's try that. Okay. Yeah, I suspect. Yeah, there we go. All right. Thanks, everyone. All right. Thanks, Siddharth, once again for the suggestions. All right. So Siddharth has been providing some. He's been giving us some suggestions during the Q&A. So I really appreciate it. It's always helpful to have people debug along with you. Okay. So the error that I made was you don't navigate back to the entire node stack. You navigate back to nodes. Right. You navigate all the way back to nodes. Visually, it's the same because nodes is in node stack. All right. But in terms of the routing, right, the stuff that gets added to the route parameters, it actually adds to this, you need to go all the way back here before this gets merged into the route parameters. Okay. There's a question here about the route.params.todo text. Any React code that has a complex expression and dependency array extracted to a separate variable so that it can be statically checked. Oh man. That feels like a ESLint error. It's just not sure what it is. I wouldn't worry too much about it, I guess. Can't think of a good way to fix it up either though, because I wouldn't worry about it for now. If anyone has any ideas, or you can send it to Ed, and maybe someone has an idea, or maybe one of my colleagues might be able to help out on that. Right? Let me know. Okay, so after that giant misadventure, we still haven't touched SQL, but we have managed to send data back. Right, the data was please work help. How did we do that? Inside our add screen, we send back to do text. Okay, close that screen now. And inside our node screen, we have this use effect that monitors route.params.todo text. And every time it returns, okay, it will be adding something to the route parameters, and you will be able to detect it. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. I think from here, we just want to, if we have something, okay, so let's just say, if this exists, okay, if this is not undefined, then we're going to add it to our database. Okay, finally, all right. So we're going to say, if this thing exists, we're going to make a new node out of it, and we're going to set nodes to it. So new const new node equals to, let's see what goes into our nodes. Our nodes has a title, which is route.params.todo text. Here, I don't need the question mark anymore because here it must exist. Okay, the question mark again is to test for existence. Okay, ID we'll just use nodes.length. Right, but we kind of need the string version of it, so to string. I think that works as well. Okay, and done will be false. And finally, we need to set nodes to be the old nodes as well as new node. All right, I think we have a to-do list. I think we finally have a to-do list. Okay. Oh no, I called it to-do instead of nodes again. All right, never mind. Oh, hey, there it is. Okay. Because of the hot reload, all right. It just so happened that this thing was hanging around in memory, and then it reloaded itself, and it just happened to add itself to the screen. Let's demo proper one now. All right, proper one now. Press submit, and there we go. It pops up at the bottom of the screen. Right. So one more. Is this a notes app or to-do app? Nobody knows. Okay. All right. So that leaves us with 10 minutes to add SQL. Not sure I can do it, but let's just try. Okay, if you all don't mind hanging around for a bit, we will finish this up. Right, might exceed a little bit of time. Okay. Added add new preview. Okay, the good news about the SQL part, the SQLite part, all right. Okay, there's bad news and good news. The bad news is that there's a lot of code, right? There is a lot of code. You need to write something with 3 callbacks, okay? And then the callback has a transaction parameter with another callback in it. Okay, so it becomes super nonsensical, right? It becomes really super nonsensical. But the good news is that it's actually, fairly straightforward, and you're going to use something very similar time after time. Okay, they're just very long SQLite queries when you want to do something like that. Okay, so the key thing is after every after every select operation, okay, you're gonna get back an array parameter, which you then use to update the state. Right now, you've kind of, whenever you start having extra storage, right, you store your data from your state into SQL. Now, the problem here is that now you have 2 things, right? Now you have 2 things, and this is kind of annoying because I thought we were using React to prevent ourselves from ever running into this situation, right? We don't want to have 2 sources of data, okay? So what you can do is, you can, after every database operation, you can just update the state based on what's in the database, if that kind of makes sense. All right, so let's quickly demo task number 9, and we'll call it a day. Okay, so we've done this, right? We've done this. And now we're going to have this database created at the very first run of our node screen. Okay, you can see over here, there's this create table call and things like that. I'm going to shove this to the side of my screen, and I'm going to type it out in the other window. Okay, so back a second. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I have yet another use effect call, right? So this one, okay, I want to comment these, add the plus button in the top right. This use effect responds to coming back from the add screen. All right, and this use effect is to create the DB on first run. Okay, so over here, all right, we're gonna do a use effect. And this one, we're going to pass it an empty array, which signifies that this thing only runs once at the very beginning. Okay, we're going to do stuff with our database. So db.transaction. All right, this thing takes in a transaction parameter, and with this transaction parameter, we run the SQL, execute SQL, and I'm just going to use a multi-line string. And this multi-line string will be create table if not exists, notes with ID integer, primary key auto increment, comma, title, which is text, comma, done, which is int, semicolon. Okay, you can go ahead and use your SQL style, uints and varchars and stuff like that, but it's just going to get reduced to integer and text and int. I think this is also int. All right, but SQLite will just reduce them for you. Okay, so I think that's enough to create the database on the first run. Okay, or it just creates if it doesn't exist. Okay. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to add a refresh node select call to run upon success of the create table call. Okay, so over here, we're going to add after this thing, right? After this this call over here, this DB transaction, you can pass in 2 more things. You can pass in error callback. No error callback, but we can have another callback called refresh nodes. Okay, refresh nodes is a function that will run when it's being created. Okay, that when after this thing successfully goes. Okay, so function refresh nodes. And this function refresh nodes will go into the database, right? Look at the transaction, and it will execute the SQL, which is actually this one I just need to select star from nodes, comma. All right, and it's got next is the arguments. There are no arguments. Next is the callback, right, which is what to do after it finishes. So for this one, I need to, this one's a bit yucky. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to give it 3 things, transaction object, and then destructure the rows array out of it. This is super disgusting. I apologize for making you all go through this. Okay. And with that function, I'm going to set nodes to the array that we get back. Okay. Next is an error callback. We can either ignore it or we can actually do something with the error. Let's just do something with the error. Okay, so with this error callback, I'm going to console.log error with error. All right, so that's a lot of very disgusting code. Okay, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's just that there's just, you know, callbacks within, you know, and random, like destructuring things within destructuring things. I just look at this and I want to cry a little bit. But what this lets us do is now we have a way of making sure that every time we finish doing some kind of operation, right? Every time I finish doing some kind of operation, we will call refresh nodes so that we set our state array to whatever the SQLite database is. That's really what we're doing lah. Okay. So I don't need to go through this. And this is the last thing, right? The last thing inside the use effect. Okay, inside the use effect, which is the plus button. Okay, respond to coming back from the use screen. All right, we don't call set nodes. Okay, we don't call set nodes. We are going to just straight up insert into the database. Okay, I'm going to comment this out. Not going to use this anymore. We're just going to db.transaction, open bracket. With the transaction, I'm going to run the SQL and insert into nodes, done title, values, 0, question mark, open bracket. All right, comma, and then the array of things to give them, which is just route.params.text. Okay, let me just check to make sure that I have all the things correct, because I feel like I have missed out some things here and there. This thing down here is okay. So instead of creating a new node myself and then setting my nodes to it, I'm just saying, hey, go to the database, and then just stuff this inside, please. Right, go and stuff this inside with these values. Done is 0. Title is this thing, route.params.text. Okay, ID you go and make for me. Right, ID you make for me. Is it backtick or double quotes? Either is fine, right? The backtick just means that you can go and embed stuff inside. You could go and embed the actual value inside here, but because it's the way tx.execute SQL works is that if you have a question mark, it will go look for an array of things afterwards to try and fill them in, kind of like how you do it with C. Okay, route.params.todo text. Yes, thank you. Yes, thanks, Ria. All right, so it is route.params.todo text. All right, fingers crossed. Let's see whether this works. Oh my goodness. It's exactly 5 p.m. Okay, so the one cool thing that just happened is that it's in effect, right? My use effect is in effect. My use effect has gone ahead and said, hey, there's nothing in your database, so there's nothing inside your state. Okay, let's try adding things. All right. Something, take a nap. Submit. Okay. All right. On that note, I'm not sure that we all want to stay back and fix whatever weird error that I have run into this time. Okay. I will hang around for a little bit longer to try and get this fixed up. All right. If anyone has any ideas, do let me know. I'm gonna just push this. Whoa. Hang on, wait a minute. What? Oh, I know. Okay, sorry. This the insert into, I forgot to my insert into, I forgot to I forgot to give it the refresh. So now and refresh notes. Okay, I think we're done. Okay, this thing keeps refreshing itself, right? Because of the auto reload, but let's just try this. Okay, back up and go home, press submit. Yay, press submit. Okay, and to prove that this works as an app with actual persistence, I'm going to kill the app. Kill. All right, and I'm going to open Expogo and open up my Notes app, and there it is. Okay, by right, I'm not sure what this thing is. Okay, but by right, if not for the persistence, all the data would be gone. Okay, I'm done for today. Right, thank you for hanging out with me and sticking around with all the weird typos. I hope that this made sense. Okay, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we did, and I think it would make a lot more sense as a reference rather than trying to struggle your way through making this work. Okay, I would treat this as a reference. If you can, download my app, run it, try it out, make some changes. Try the challenge, add a delete button, right? The delete button, you need an icon, you need a delete from notes where ID equals to something, okay? And then after that, refresh notes, right? And there's some bunch of extensions that you can do as well. All right, so I apologize for all the little hiccups along the way, and thank you so much to those who have been helping out. I really do appreciate it, right? All those who've been coming in and chipping in with suggestions and actually solving some of my problems. If you have any questions or comments, once again, please head over to Ed. And tomorrow we will finish up our lessons with working with online databases. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a great Thursday afternoon and take care, and we will see you soon. Bye.